right then.
We're good.
I think so. We should be live. I'm just going to double check like I always do to make sure we're all good and ready to go. Let's get us all viewed on this one so we can see everybody. We're refreshing. It's saying we're live.
Yeah.
Yes. I think we are live. Just going to double check to make sure we're doing it all right. And we should be on here. Yes, we are live. We are good. Cool. Yes, Corey Hubbard says you are live, Ash, which is always a good.
Thank you, Corey.
Yeah, thanks for that. It's always good to actually know. Cool. Sorry, we're a little bit late. That is entirely Tim's fault. I'm always going to blame it on Tim.
Eating too many jelly babies.
Yeah, too many jelly babies. They got distracted. Too much. Cool.
Are they
awesome.
paleo? Are they paleo?
Yeah.
Paleo jelly babies.
Literally, well, yeah, jelly babies. That's what caveman ate, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And Diet Coke.
Cool. Brendan's just gone, and I can see and hear all of you except Phil, but he isn't talking, so that's all good.
Probably why you can't hear me.
Yeah. At least I can hear you, which is cool. Awesome, guys. Well, again, sorry that we are a little bit late. Only like 13 minutes behind, so that's not too bad. Got a little bit of treat for you today. We have two for the price of one. We've got both Tim and Phil on here. Tim, you've obviously met a few times before in the group. Phil, I don't think you have met yet, so I'll let these guys introduce themselves very, very shortly.
Phil's the brains behind it, by the way.
Yeah, Phil's the brains behind behind Tim. Tim's his little puppet. I'll tell you what I'm actually going to do. I'm going to hand straight over to these guys because we're all a little bit late. They can chat, tell you about what they're going to be here for, introduce themselves, and then, yeah, we'll go from there. So over to you guys.
Cool. Do you want to go, Phil? Go on.
You introduced me. I don't know.
you're much
My head's too big already.
Right. So yeah, I'm Tim, obviously, and that's Phil. We're business partners. We've written 2 books together. We founded the Institute for Institute of Fitness Behavior Change. It's kind of more of a development on what we've been doing, both individually and together as well, over probably 8 years now, but with a bit of a break in between. Really, the reason we started is because that was the thing I think that we first bonded over, like really being interested, being in the gym together, probably doing what lots of people are doing, 30 hours a week, making some okay money, walking the floor, getting clients, but realizing at one point, like we actually wanted to really get results with clients. I think we were both in the gym, not a comparison, but I think there was people in there that weren't that bothered. They didn't really mind whether their clients got results or not. They just enjoyed being there. And that's totally cool. But I think we started what we now see to be going down the route of learning about coaching. And specifically when we say coaching, it's more habit-based coaching, more behavior change stuff. Hence 6 years later that we founded that. So we did a lot of marketing and sales for a while. We still do, but what we realized is that probably the thing that people need the most help with in the industry, and I think from people in the industry as well, is to understand, like, not just getting results with 1 or 2 clients, like getting consistent results. And I mean consistent with like 9 out of 10. And I think there's been a movement over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Ash, we were talking before about people starting to maybe tag me in or just start to ask about like the more coaching based stuff, whether we call it like, I think there was one in UK PTs and it's just like, my client doesn't really do what I'm saying. Sometimes I feel like a counselor. Like, does anyone know anything about like, actually, would it be worth doing? And she actually said, would it be worth doing a coaching course? And clearly I'm like, hell yeah. So I feel like, so people know, because I think there's often a misconception about what coaching is. I think a good way to approach it is like, who would be the type of fit pro that would benefit from starting to understand behavior change and coaching?
I'd say first of all that you've got a little bit of experience in the gym, so you've got your qualified, and then you've learned how to do diet and exercise. Like the first year, 18 months, it's like, this is how you train someone, you learn about nutrition and all that stuff. And you do need that down. You do need those basics to probably be the most effective fitness coach that you could be. Then once you've got that, it's like, it's a limited pool of knowledge, and it's kind of, it just is what it is, right? You can argue about different ways.
It's almost like diminishing returns, isn't it?
different ways to train and stuff, but it really makes like such a minimal difference. What you start to realize at that point is, some of my clients are coming in, they're getting really good results. They follow everything I say, and I'm a genius. They get amazing results. Then there's like 50, 60, 70% of the clients who don't follow everything I say. And the information hasn't changed. It's not suddenly become wrong. They're not somehow different, not significantly anyway. The problem is it's something up here. Like, they don't do the things that I'm telling these other clients to do, and they're getting results, and these people are not. You start to realize that there's more to it than just diet and exercise. So if you've been in the game for like more than a year or two, you've got results with, a decent number of clients. And I guess you have that desire to be better. You see this as a long-term career. You actually want to make an impact. You really want to help people. You start to naturally go towards like, okay, what's next? Because layering another piece of nutrition on, like diving even deeper into the science, is not going to make any difference in the implementation for the client. So you start to realize that, we start to realize anyway over time, that it's about like what's going on psychologically, the behavior change. Why are these people not actually doing what we're telling them to do? And how do we take responsibility for that and make it happen, make them do what we want? I think over the last, I'd say 18 months, maybe last year, there has been a big shift in the industry. I remember when we first came in, it was all about different training styles, and it was all like pull check and Swiss balls and bullshit. Then it was like Poliquin made training like what we would now consider good training. Then it was like nutrition and paleo and if it fits your macros and all this, like all these progression. And the last year or so, it's really been a lot more about behavior change. People are starting to recognize that just being a personal trainer and turning up and say, do 10 sets of squats is not enough. It's okay if you want to be a commodity who's like, $40 an hour. But if you really want to have a successful business, make a big impact, really change people's lives, then you need to take responsibility for them over the course of the whole transformation. And that means, what are they doing the 155 hours they're not in the gym with you? That's where kind of we're at now, teaching this stuff, the behavior change, the psychology that really creates a transformation.
And I think like one of the big things, because I think it's still unclear of what, when we talk about coaching, often people, and it's not that it's not, by the way, it's like, I'm a strength and condition coach. So coaching in that sense is I coach someone how to do a deadlift better. That's totally reasonable. And of course it's important. But when we talk about coaching, it's more along the lines of, you're probably nearer someone like Tony Robbins, or understanding terms like limiting beliefs, or why do my clients sabotage themselves? Why do they have poor relationship with food? Why, maybe like one of the first things I remember you did, Phil, was going and looking at studying some NLP. And I was reading books like Switch, later on the Chimp Brain, things like Mindset, like Harold. Lots of fit pros talk about mindset, but they don't necessarily actually know what it is. And it's like, how do I do that? So for me, it was like, I would tell my client to do something, and I believed that they wanted to because they were paying me money. And they did what I asked them in the session. They trained hard, and yet they'd come back the next week and nothing would change. And they'd stand on the scales and it would be like, nothing's changed. And I think one of the big things that we did a video in our group the other day, and someone was just like, my clients turn up, they lose a bit of weight, and then they just seem to drift, and then they leave. And there was a lot of conversation about why that was. And then someone said, and the guy that was posting and stuff said, look, I know it's not about the money. And someone else came in and said, why is it not about the money? Sure, it's about the money. What, do all your clients have unlimited money? And I think the thing for us is, it's not about the money. It's about the fact that they're not seeing the value in what they're doing anymore. Why is that? And I think we as trainers, we think, right, they've stopped getting results. So maybe they've lost, I don't know, 10 pounds. They've stopped getting results. What do we do? And the temptation at that point is to go, I need to make it more complicated for them. I need to, like, I remember I did this, Ash. Hope you never did. Like, I had this was back in the day of like my fucking paleo bread is evil days. I blame Poliquin. But I had someone on a super low carb diet, and I was like, right, what is the way of getting this dude to lose more weight? And by the way, I'm not going to get into the physiology of like, was this the right or wrong thing to do? It was more like he wasn't getting results with this low carb diet. It wasn't to do with the fact that physiologically, it's just, well, actually, I think he was probably lying, and he probably wasn't following what I asked him to do, because I didn't have the ability to have that conversation, get the honesty and the truth on the table, which is the first thing that we need to do with clients. And I was like, okay, this complicated program isn't working, because I think it was like no bread. I think I might have even said no fruit at one point. Stop losing weight. And just like, oh my God, because of course fruit's bad. And so then I decided the best solution was to put him on like 2 days a week where he was putting like, change his macros, high carb, really high carb, relatively low fat, medium protein. And it's just like, hang on a minute. Now I look back and go, he was like, someone's not learning the first sentence of walking up to someone to say, where's the swimming pool in French? And you decide that the best thing to do is teach them like War and Peace. Yeah. It's like, not like, he's not doing the first thing. Figure out why that's not happening. And I in hindsight, I did him a disservice. And I think like that kind of really summed it up to me of, it's not about, I think this is key. It's not about more information. It's about implementing the stuff that they need to do. Like, obviously, one of the things that, for people listening, Ashley, I know you this, I'm a big fan. We're big fans of transformation stuff. So it's a 12-week transformation. Like, I know lots of marketers say, well, there's other ways that are better doing it. For me, I'm like, I love the experience of literally changing someone in 12 weeks. It's a start, a finish, and an end. Like, this is a goal. It means you can sell the outcome a lot easier, so you can charge a lot more. And seeing the difference with someone through that 12 weeks, like seeing the change in their belief systems, in their mindset, and that's what gets people. That's what gets people results, and also it gets people results like they don't put it all back on. Give me some thoughts, Ash. Because I know that you're big into coaching as well. That's why we kind of got on quite well at the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I've always sort of put it akin to as when you go to school, like a kid goes to school, you don't go to school and you don't learn algebra straight away. You don't learn all these complicated things like X equals Y and all that kind of stuff. You start with the basics. You learn the subtraction, you learn adds and times tables, and it's literally like going to somebody who has no idea how to do the basics and just say, right, here's what you need to go and do. Go and do this algebraic equation, and it's just not going to happen. It's going to be stressful for them. They're probably going to cheat a little bit. They're probably going to lie about stuff. They're going to find as many workarounds they can get to get the end result.
I'd even interject, Sash. They'd probably be like, imagine they turned around to you and they were like a 9-year-old and they're going, yeah, I'm definitely going to be able to do this. I'm definitely going to do it. You don't just believe them.
No.
They want to do it, but it doesn't mean they can, right?
No. Exactly. And that's the sign of a good coach, or if you like, or even a teacher to some extent, is that you look at that and you think, they can't go do that straight away. So you have to try and break it down and simplify it for them and help them implement the simple stuff first. So eventually that stacks up on top of each other over time, and eventually they'll be able to understand it and they'll be able to solve the equation in the end. And that's how I always kind of imagine how coaching kind of is. And you see it quite a lot. And I once had it quite the extent that you said there back in the early days when I first started doing it. Looked at a bit of a coaching background before I actually came into personal training, but I do see that quite a lot. And there are times where I've had to sort of like, knock myself back into gear again and think, actually, Ash, come on, let's think about this. I'm not going to go and overcomplicate this. And again, I've done similar things where someone's really struggling and think, I'll cut the carbs out, because I know if I cut the carbs out, they'll drop some water weight, they'll feel happy about it. But then deep down, I know that's not the real solution, so I decided against it. And so I definitely agree with what you're saying.
And even like, I think sometimes we could easily drift down the physiology route. I think one of the things Phil said earlier was really relevant, because I mean, obviously, not obviously, but one of the things that I got well known for was certainly the online stuff. And so when you move into the online coaching realm, as opposed to more sort of training based, lower ticket, lower price, I'm talking about like high ticket, high value, like interaction with your clients. And so you certainly charge more for that. You realize how much of the importance is training, and how much is food, but food and being able to implement the food. Like as a personal trainer, it says it on your back, personal training. That's what people are buying for you. That's what you do. So some people are perfectly fine with having clients that come and see them once a week, pay them for an hour, and then they see them next week. And that's just what they do. And it's like an exchange of an hour of your time, of my time for your money. That's cool. The obvious thing is that that's going to limit you at some point because there's only so many hours in the week. So you might do, I don't know, you might be in your 20s, for instance, and your early 20s, you've got no kids, no family, no mortgage. Say if you worked in London and you were doing 30 hours a week, you're pretty fucking happy, especially if you're not putting it all through the book, which most people don't. Like you're walking around with wads of cash. It's like, hey. But fast forward 10 years and you've got kids and you've got a mortgage and you've got a missus and you want to go on holiday and you get ill, you're in trouble. And so when you start to going online, you start to realize that the value, like the problem is that there's a limitation in your time. So when you create transformation programs, and like I did when I first went online, you can start to charge for the result as opposed to an hour of your time. So a lot of people, like I was charging quite a lot for my online and to be honest, for my one-to-one as well. It's like, how can you charge so much for that? So like the first thing that people think is that I think probably they think that you're giving more away in that program. And actually, if I opened up what I did do to my clients with my clients in week one, it's basically nothing. It's like walk around the park, drink more water, sort your breakfast out. Like, I mean, that would be it. And it's like, well, what? And I would have been embarrassed back in the day to even think that I could give that to someone and they'd get results. Do you want to do some principle stuff, Phil?
Yeah. I think just to add just kind of where you left off, if you take a step back and stop being in your personal trainer ego, just take a step back. Like we've used the analogy, about like music. If you're going to teach somebody how to, say, play the violin, you don't give them, here's Mozart, go play it, because that's valuable, so I'm going to charge more. It's like, no, you're paying me, so I'm going to teach you this one string that you're going to repeat hundreds of times until you can actually do the damn thing. Then maybe we'll progress to some more complicated things. But for some reason, as personal trainers, we think that you want to start with all the complicated shit. And it's like Ash said, they just can't do it. So
I would say on that just quickly, and I think one of the things that's really worthwhile if you're watching this is that I might have in the past gone, no, but my programs are really good because Bob and Betty and Hyacinth all got they all got to have lots of old clients, Betty and Hyacinth and they all got results.
Tim
so
has a niche in the 90
in essence put it down to like, yeah, that's my niche. Yeah, we in essence put that down to like a causation. The causation was that Hyacinth and Rose did my amazing program. Whereas actually, maybe it's just correlation. Maybe it just happens to be that they were in the right place because all the other people surely would disprove your theory of, well, my program, like you said earlier, my program, if it was a scientific study of some sort, like all of the other people would disprove that theory that, oh, well, it must be my amazing programs. No, it's probably everything else. And it's probably their motivation, for want of a better word, at the beginning. So I got lots and lots and lots of good results as a PT before I really understood coaching from being what I thought was about really understanding the nutrition and the training. But like what I realize now is that's probably not the case. It was just me looking for, I think it's like confirmation bias in some way. And so if we can, hopefully, again, all I'd ask people to say is like, how many of my clients don't get results? And by the way, the clients that don't get results soon leave. So I think one of the principles, like I'd even start, Phil, with like one of the things that we talk about is like start slow, finish fast, and the importance of that. Like what were other ones we went through?
I'm trying to remember them all.
Or just random ones.
So the answer lies within. Start slow, finish fast. Implementation, not information. Questions are the answers.
Ash, how deep are we going with some of this stuff, do you think?
I think we can go. I think we can quite the stuff you talked about there. I think the questions, the answers would be a good thing to dig into deep, because I think a lot of people struggle with that. There's a big thing that I see a lot where people will just tell people stuff more than ask more questions to dig deeper and just understand how to listen. I think that's quite a cool thing we should dig deep into, and definitely implementation of information is something that's a huge thing. One of the most common things I get to see, and for anyone that doesn't know that's watching this, I tend to work with a lot of trainers who will literally send me everything they've got and they ask me to implement it online for them to make it simple. And the amount of information I get sent sometimes is unbelievable. And one of the first things I do is go, let's get rid of this, rid of this, rid of this, and how we're going to get this information, how we're going to help this person implement that with a client. And it's a huge kind of, I don't know, it's an ego thing or something like that, because they want to show off and share what they know or whatever it is. But I think this idea of implementation of information is a thing we should dig deep into. Yeah, definitely those two things.
I think it is ego. I think it is show off, but not because people are bad people.
No.
I think it's because, and it links to the idea of like, what is it that we do? What do personal trainers do? Like, your job is to tell people things. Like that's almost like, I remember I went through a little stage of like, if anyone asked me a question, I'd be like, I so wanted to, it wasn't impress them, but it maybe it was to justify my being as a personal trainer. It's like, I think at points I would just kind of ramble along and try and hopefully pretend that I knew stuff. And then I realized one day, it's like, no, actually I'm better than that. I can say, you know what? I don't know. I'm going to go and find out and research it for you. And I'd go away and I'd research it and I'd come back and tell them the answer. It'd be like in one ear and out the other. And it wasn't even the right question. They didn't need to know that. It was like some random questions about supplements. While the dude's sitting there eating burgers and donuts every night, it's like, well, come on. And so for then, now I would just meet that with a question. I was like, okay, do you think that the supplements are the biggest challenge for you at the moment? Or would you say that there's other things that we could work on first? Like, I'm just answering their question with a question, which is a really fundamental shift when you move into coaching, which is hard to do because you think your value lies in telling the person more information. That's, I think, a big reason for it. So when we say questions are the answers, it's literally asking questions. Like, if you, for instance, one of the things that we do in the internship, what we will be doing is we'll get people to record their coaching calls, so their check-ins on Skype. And then you could say the same thing in your conversations with people in the gym or after their session or however you do it. How much of the time are you speaking and how much of the time is the person speaking at the other end? And you should be speaking maybe 20% of the time. They should be speaking 80% of the time, which is certainly an inverse. And I think if you looked at where most people would be if they do check-ins, their perception is I get on a call and I just tell the person all this stuff and it's just me talking to people. Phil, why do you think that doesn't work?
Like you mentioned ego before, and people do get ego invested in what they think they know and trying to show that off. But I think that's a symptom of the problem. It's not the root. I think the root of the problem is that people are too zoomed in. They're too myopic in what they're looking at. And that's partly because that's what you're conditioned to do as a personal trainer. You're told to focus on exercise and whatever. So when somebody comes and asks you this question about supplements, you don't take a step back and think, why are they asking this question? And is it important over the whole picture of them actually transforming? Or you just like, let me answer to show how smart I am. And so because you're looking too narrow, then you're always missing the forest for the trees. And you're always looking at the next tree and missing the whole forest behind it. And that's, I think, where a lot of the problems come from. And you, like, kind of what you're finishing up with what you just said is, again, it's the implementation, not the information. So they don't need that information. They need to go and implement the basic stuff. but we're so zoomed into like, well, they said this, so let me answer it, that we totally miss that they haven't done all of the shit behind it. We end up, it's almost like they don't know because the clients aren't diseducated, but they're like almost sabotaging themselves by focusing on this detail, like perfectionism. They need to know all this ridiculous information whilst not doing any of it. We get caught in that, and then we almost feed into it and almost a lot of the time facilitate it, because as trainers we like to show off our knowledge, and we probably have the perception that we're supposed to teach them this deep stuff. So we end up making it worse in a lot of ways, because they're asking like this question that in the grand scheme of things isn't important. And then we go even super
do I do
deep
8 reps or 10 reps?
Yeah, and then we go really deep with it. And then they're just really deep into the science of like loading protocols, and you start getting into the physics of force production and shit. And they're just
reading Mel Sif, or trying to read Mel Sif, pretending that you're reading it anyway.
Which is great and all. And then, but then it's like, oh, how intense did you go to the gym this week? Oh, yeah, I only went once in the last time.
You see it all the time, don't you? I mean, like, we have a lot of conversations with trainers, and there's people, coaches and trainers that are listening to this now. I always try and say, just put it on the other foot. Imagine when you're going out there and doing research for something like Facebook ads, or trying to understand marketing and sales, something you're not comfortable with and something that you've never done before. And then somebody is there personally, watching this, you're reading this, it's telling you all this information about how to do retargeting, how to do Facebook pixels, or whatever it is. And it just goes like this over your head. And you literally don't have any understanding really. And you just feel lost. And then you tend to just jump from one thing to another thing to another thing. Well, you put that on the other foot to what it's like for your clients. If you're going down there's overloading all this information that's not really that important to start off with, they're going to feel exactly the same way. They're going to have no idea really what's going on. They're going to feel lost. It's going to go over their heads. And then they're just going to start looking for ways to do stuff. And we do it, it happens all the time.
And I think like the idea of like, even in those situations, the temptation is to just tell the client. And I think one of the key things, if you look at like the idea of like, well, why do you not tell people? So I'll have times where I'm on conversations, both where I'm coaching them in as a business coach or in the more sort of coaching personal development stuff. It's like, I actually know the answer. I won't give it to them. And I do it on purpose because I'm looking at a much bigger picture, because I want them to start realizing that they do know enough. Like the reason that, if you look at an example of say something like organizational change. So I studied this at university, and you kind of know that it would be important now. It's like, if you go in, M&S was a big example of this. Marks and Spencer's, like, they've had a certain type of culture in their business, and what they wanted to do is change that culture. So what do you go and do? Well, you go in there and you can just tell everyone that works there, right, you're going to do it like this. And they might sit there and go, yes, 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 yes. And then they leave and everyone goes off. Nah, who are these people coming in? These outsiders, these new people, they can't tell us what to do. And they act like children almost. Actually, it's been proven that they're less likely to do it. And they're actually likely to do exactly the opposite. Now, that might sound strange with clients because, well, hang on a minute, they're paying me this money. They've still got like human brains. So what tends to happen is, you can imagine, like, there's a school of psychology which is called transaction analysis. And it just says that we come from like either the adult, parent, child of our brains. It's how we approach the world, view the world, how we I'll give you an example. I had a client once, and she came in, it's a little bit deeper. She came in and she just was in a terrible, she sat down, she's a 40-year-old woman, by the way. And I'd just been studying this in my coaching diploma, and they're like, you can't coach people when they're in that child part of their brain. It's literally like trying to talk to a child. So you can't do that. You have to move them from that child part of their brain to the more adult rational part. She sat down in front of me, and it was literally like, she's a 45-year-old woman. She was fucking successful lawyer. And I was like, there's that time. And so I just asked her questions and talked to her, and I said, what do you think the issue? Tell me some stuff. And I just listened to her. And then bit by bit, she started acting more reasonable. And then after about 20 minutes, which by the way, it could be like, oh my God, that seems ages. But actually at that point, then I could even say to her, what do you think is the best thing to do, by the way? She's like, well, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't eat the donuts. And I could have told her at the beginning, but children don't listen to, don't put your hand on the hob. They don't listen to it. And even as adults, as clients, what they tend to do when we tell people too much, they sometimes will do exactly the opposite in some way, and they won't do it. Whereas the difference between someone going in an organizational change and saying, right, what do you guys want to do? This is what our aims are together. How can we work together to make that happen? And then you get everyone's opinion and everyone has a share in that. And then they start going, well, okay. And in psychologically, it's like, this was my idea. Of course I'm attached to doing it. And because the questions are the answers, Phil said, the answers lay within. It's like, I would say most clients know, I think, and I think this, I'm pretty sure. I think I could do a 12-week transformation with a client and I could not tell them one thing about diet and nutrition. And I think I could get them to lose weight without telling them anything actually about the diet and just asking them, what do you think you should do? So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I do in week 1 of my online transformation program is I just get them to turn up with 2 days worth of food diary. And I screen share it and I say, it's a photos of everything, by the way. And I just say, what would you like to change? Or in fact, the first thing I say, what are your thoughts? Just what are your thoughts? Ash, what do you think they do? What do you think the standard thing is, by the way? Like what's shown?
I think the first thing that because I do a similar thing with my clients. I get them to take photos and then we'll basically discuss how they feel generally about what they've got on the plate.
Yeah.
Most of the time they tend to be, they put themselves down. That's what happens most of the times with me. They put themselves down and just say like, I shouldn't have had that. I shouldn't have had this. I shouldn't have had that. I shouldn't have had this. And they generally do know. Like you can see straight away, they know almost instantaneously where they are going wrong with their diet.
What I often
almost
see is like this kind of laugh of like guilt, little child, like oh God, like it's like they know that this is like it's like croissant and big frappuccino latte for breakfast. It's like maybe I shouldn't do that, and I'm like, well, what do you think? And they'll go, well, I'm not going to eat it, am I? And I'm like, okay, what do you want to do? And they're like, no. So imagine a kid like this. I actually think this is a good place to start. It sounds a bit patronizing. Act as if your clients were children at the beginning.
I've always said do it for. I always say do it for a 10-year-old. That's what that's what I thought about it as.
Yeah,
everything I do.
Because it's like, what do you want to do? Like, and they'll and they'll know. So that's kind of backs up what I'd say. I think that you could take someone on a 12-week transformation without telling them, don't do that, because they know. I think they know 90% of what to do.
They do anyway. I mean, I've literally had. We're not even clients of mine that in the past have really struggled with just losing weight with PTs. And one of the ways I choose to get them to help become one of my clients is obviously just give them a good service. And I would literally sometimes through Facebook Messenger just say, I'll tell you what, just send me some photos. Literally like the food you have for the next few days, just send me your photos through and I'll take a look at it at the end of the week and we'll have some feedback. And they send the photos and stuff through. And then even by the end of the week, they'll message me saying, oh, I've lost a few pounds this week. And I'm like, well, why do you think that is? And I says, well, I don't know. And we did question. Basically, what was happening is they were taking photos and that was making them aware of the food they was eating without me doing anything, because they was aware of the food they was eating. They knew where they was going wrong. And you could see it over like the space of a few days. Their meals started to change because they knew that they would send it to me. I wasn't looking. I was not really checking their photos at all, to be honest with you. But they thought I was, and they were literally making those changes because they already know the answer. They already know where they're kind of going wrong, what they need to do. You can literally do nothing. And they would still make those changes over time because they do know.
Like Seneca says, like the consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step in salvation.
Yeah.
Like just knowing what it's like if you were one of the things that people do when they want to sort their money out, their finance out, something that you can say is write down what money you spend. Have a little pen and paper, and every time you spend money, you have to write it down. And I'm like, day one, third Starbucks. I know I drank 3 Starbucks, by the way. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't. I knew I did. I wrote it down because I wanted fucking 3 because I like coffee. Then the next day I'm like, fucking hell, that's like £9, man, over the year. So then it just dropped to 2. I didn't actually want to write the third one down, which stopped me doing it. And then actually I was like, by the end of the first week, I'm like, oh, maybe I should stop being lazy. I can make myself a coffee in the morning instead of walking to Starbucks on the way to the tube. I can buy a little handheld thing and it cost me like £3 and £6 and there you go. And it's like, within a week was down to 1 coffee. Exactly the same principle. It's like, we don't need to tell them. I think one of the principles we've got in the internship is what gets measured gets managed. Sometimes you don't even need to tell people stuff. You just help them see what they're doing and they will automatically change it themselves.
Yeah, it's like the saying goes, isn't it? You can't really get out the shit until you know how much shit you're in. So you need to understand that first before you can. That's a Northern saying, yeah.
Let's go down with that. Let's go a little bit deeper. So one of the things that we talked about, like about the call, is around, I guess, limiting beliefs and some stuff around NLP, and just starting to take a little bit of a step deeper with what I think is really more than a useful next step. Because we could look at it and say, like, we're starting to do, maybe some of the guys watching are already doing some of this. They're good coaches and they're asking their clients questions. They simplify things and they start slowly. It's 2 to 3 things each week, but they're still not necessarily getting buy-in. Phil, give some thoughts on what is a limiting belief? What is a belief, I guess?
Belief is a preconceived idea of what is. So it's like, instead of, I guess the easiest way to understand it is the contrast of, you don't need to go and work it out or find the answer. You already think you know it. So it's like a shortcut for your mind, basically. Instead of like if you know what 10 by 10 times 10 is, you just know it's 100. You don't need to get your pen and paper out and start doing the calculation every single time. You just have a belief that it's 100 without thinking about it. So it's like a shortcut for the mind. So instead of having to take in like every stimulus in the world, which is like billions a day, and then try and sort through them, it's just a shortcut of like, this is that, X equals Y, or 10 by 10 equals Y. Done.
So I can't lose weight because I'm too old.
Yeah, that would be a limiting belief. So I'd say that a limiting belief is just a belief that doesn't serve you. I think what people don't understand about beliefs is that people think a belief is fixed. They misconstrue a belief for a fact.
Do you mean people in the clients or personal?
Just people in general. Like anyone who's not really ever thought about this. Like if you've not thought about it philosophically, like you don't know what a belief is. You don't know where your beliefs come from. And I'll tell you, none of them are yours. Literally, none of them are yours. Because you've never thought about any of this. You've just brought them on from your parents, from the media, from society, from advertising, whatever. Yeah, and if it goes unexamined, then you're just like, well, that's what it is. Shine a light on it. It's like, well, is that true? Most of the time, no. You can change your belief like that.
With practice, right?
Just by looking at it. Like, yeah, with practice, but
I think one of the things that I would look at this, like, where does this play out? Imagine that you've got a client. Frank Kern in marketing talks about yay minus boo. So he talks about the yay and the boo. The yay is the good thing. The boo is the bad thing. So 6-pack abs without ever going into the gym or eating any salad. So I want the 6-pack abs, the yay, but I don't want the boo. I don't want to have to go into the gym and not eat salad or eat salad. So if you imagine you've got a client, and this isn't always totally conscious with them, and deep down, they don't believe that they can lose weight. They've not only got a belief that it's just the way my genetics are. And by the way, most personal trainers laugh at that, like post on Facebook, make fun of people. It's like, well, understand why it's there. There's a reason it's there, by the way. It serves that person. And also be clever enough to go, maybe if I'm nicer and understand that, more likely to spend money with me, and I can then go and work with them to help them figure that out, right? So they just simply as, I don't believe I can lose weight. And I would say a lot of your clients, not either deep down, sometimes subconsciously, sometimes actually very consciously, and they just don't believe it. They don't believe they can lose weight. So imagine then there's such a boo, like, there's no yay. If you knew that you could lose weight, you would probably do more to do that. If you just don't believe you can, the boo is go to the gym, stop eating donuts, not drink bottles of wine, like all the things that people enjoy. What's the point in them even doing it? Like, why would you bother? Because it's like, well, I could do all this stuff, and if the outcome at the end is like, I can study for 3 years for my degree, but I know at the end I'm going to get a fail. Do you study? Do you do it? No, of course you don't. Like, you just don't. You'd leave. Now you might be there. Now the thing is, I think a lot of personal trainers would be like, why are they here? Why would they pay me money if they didn't believe they could? Well, they do. Like, they do, because they want to pretend in some way.
So there's a conflict between their conscious and their subconscious mind as well. It's like you can be operating in a place of like, I'm looking in the mirror, I'm fat, I don't like it, my clothes don't fit, I want to do something about it. And that's all happening consciously. While subconsciously, you still have this, well, I was bullied as a 10-year-old for being fat. My parents were overweight and I'm big boned. That can be going on under the surface that you're not necessarily aware of. So you're only aware of, I want to do something about this. Let me go hire a personal trainer. Let me go spend some money. Let me go and try and take some action. And in that moment, that's where you're at. But then under the surface, you're sabotaging yourself because there's that conflict, and you're like, as much as this hurts and I want to fix it and I'm taking action, spending money and doing the work, I'm also sabotaging myself because it's like, well, like I said, what's the point? This isn't going to work.
Talk about sabotaging. What does that mean? Like, what does that? How does that play out?
It plays out in, I'd say, it's doing anything that they would know is not helping them. Now, they don't make that choice usually. Like, that's a real deep level of sabotage. Really consciously doing it. Like, I know this is going to hurt me, but I'm going to go do it anyway. But what usually happens is, if you ask them, or if they were given advice to somebody else, they would recognize that what they're doing is not helping. But they don't ask themselves that question. They just go and do it anyway without thinking. So maybe like people, so I've been following the diet all week, so I'm going to go and have a binge on Friday night or Saturday night or whatever. And it's like, and if you just ask them, it's like, okay, yeah, you've been in a deficit of like 200 calories a day over the rest of the week, right? So that's 1,200 calories. But then you've gone and eaten 5,000 calories for dinner on Friday night. What does the maths tell you? Where is that energy balance at? Okay, you're still in a surplus. You're still going to gain weight. So while you're thinking, they're not saying that to themselves in the moment, though. What they're saying is, I've worked so hard all week. I've sacrificed so much all week. I deserve to treat myself. It's just the misalignment of the reality and what they're telling themselves. Even though if you make them take a step back and see the reality, then they can see it's wrong.
I think a lot of people talk about, like, they understand people sabotaging themselves. They understand that people have like a poor relationship with food, for instance. I think that if you talked about, I think people would more connect, and people listening would more connect that, say, a female client is more likely to know that they've got that maybe disordered eating, a poor relationship with food. I think that it happens with men, but men perhaps don't discuss it. They don't know how to verbalize it as much. They do also have other ways of dealing with emotional issues that are there. It doesn't come out in an addiction to food all the time, or it doesn't need to be an addiction. It could be just they eat to make themselves feel better. So men tend to do it in other ways, but they do also do that. It's like, I think a lot of people know, like a lot of trainers would know, yeah, I've heard about people who've got like bad relationship with food, but they've got no idea what to do. And I think that they think it's out of scope as a personal trainer as well. It's like, where would I even start with these conversations? And maybe if I knew where to start, I feel that I need to in some way fix everything for them as well. What happens if I don't know how to fix them? Where do you think people start? Ash, what do you think?
I think when I've worked with people and stuff in the past, and when you talk about self-sabotage, and especially when it comes to behaviours and eating food, one of the things I've found a lot, especially in men actually, is people kind of create these, I don't know, like habit loops or behaviour loops, if you like, that are associated with something that's happened in the past. And I like the idea by trying to identify that. And it's normally about just digging a little bit deeper. So the simplest of example I can probably think of is, let's say you've had a really stressful day at work and you decide to go out and you think, I'm going to get a coffee with my friend. You're feeling really down. You've got low energy. So you grab, I don't know, this muffin or something like a big cake and eat that cake. And you go, okay, I feel better. I've had that sugar. I feel really good now. I've got some energy back. I'm chatting with my friends in this coffee shop. My endorphins are coming back. I'm feeling good. A few days later, another bad day at work. You go back to the coffee shop again with your friends because that's something what you normally do. And your brain's kind of thinking, well, last time I was in here, I felt really shitty like this. So I had this cake. So you start getting this little urge for this kind of like, I'm going to go and eat this cake. And they'll take that, they'll eat it, and then they'll feel better again. And this kind of behavior loop starts to build up and build up. And it almost becomes habitual for them when they feel down to associate that with this food. And I think that happens quite a lot with a lot of people when they have this kind of poor relationship with food. And to me, it's been about trying to identify that, trying to find out, you know, why they decide to make this decision when they have this food, why they decide to have this. And it normally is something like that. And it's just about trying to find out what that is, and then trying to either replace that with something else or break that habit loop down.
How do you find out what that is?
Ask questions. Just literally ask questions.
It's as simple as that sometimes, right? Just the awareness of it.
Yeah, just make them aware. I've always been the thing about make them aware of what's going on, and then let's ask questions and ask them how they feel about stuff, why they think this is happening, and eventually it will. It's kind of like the whole 5 whys thing. You just keep digging deeper and deeper, and eventually they'll realise. And it's not about you. Like you might realise before them what the problem is, but eventually the key is to keep going and allow them to realise what the problem is. Let them tell you what it is, and as soon as they have this awareness, it's almost like a light bulb movement, an epiphany for them. And I think if you can give your client an epiphany, even if it's just one epiphany out of all these other like habit loops or behaviour loops they've got, that's going to kind of start this domino effect of change. And when that happens, your life as a coach becomes a lot easier because it's just become a lot easier.
You don't get locked to your phone, padlocked to your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy stuff like questions all the time. I mean, I actually had that. A dude came in and I had just asked him to plug some, I think I was doing like plug your breakfast in for MyFitnessPal, doing it bit by bit. And he came in, he's like, oh my God. And by the way, this guy had the worst fucking diet I've seen. He was a skinny fat, but he should have been like 30 stone. And we had been doing, I think we were probably week 4, something like that. And we'd already taken like the 2 cans of Coke that he was drinking every day out. I mean, it was atrocious. But he was still keeping his biscuits in there. Like, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going in week 1. We're taking 2 cans of Coke out a day in week 1. I'm happy with that. Like calories would suggest that that's going to make it. And it did, by the way. He was losing a couple of pounds a week. And he just came in week 4 and he's like, oh my God, do you know how many calories there are in biscuits? And it's like, no shit, dude. Really? I was like, no, I hammed it up. I was like, no, why don't you tell me? And I did make a joke. And he goes, no, seriously. And I was like, no, you tell me. He's like, there's 100 calories in each. And I was like, okay. Temptation, stop eating them. No, just okay. He's like, I should stop eating them, right? What do you think? I'm not going to eat them again. Cool. Literally, that's it. And you're like, how fucking easy was that? But I'm not, and again, I could have tackled that in week 1. Stop eating the biscuits, stop eating the biscuits. He'll act like a child and he'll push back and he'll be like, oh, in his mind, the biscuits aren't that important until he realizes that they are, like you said, the temptation is you almost want to tell them. I made a rule, like, even if it takes a week longer or 2 weeks longer for them to come to the conclusion that I know they'll come to, I knew the answer at the beginning. It's like, there's a bigger picture here, like you said. it's coaching clients on a level where you're enabling them, really. So one of the big things that I like is someone comes through my 12-week program, I see them 12 months later and they've still kept the weight off. It's like, it works wonders for your business as well, because they've not gone back and they tell their friends, oh my God, oh yeah, I did it with him and it was all done. One thing that I just wanted to revisit was like the idea of like what you said about these guys grabbing a muffin. Like, I think there are deeper levels of that as well, though. It's like, where does that come from? Like, where does it come from of why they choose to do that? Like, Phil, you said like none of these beliefs are their own choice. What does that mean?
People have picked up habits and things like Ash was saying. Like they started off going there once after work, and then it's like, oh, I feel a bit better. Oh, I'll do that again. And suddenly that's what they do. And it's not like when they walk in for the 354th time, they're not going, should I go get a muffin today? Is that going to serve my diet? They're just doing it. It's not, they haven't had any conscious choice there. Like that's a habit that they've probably created themselves, but there's also habits that have been created for them. Like maybe they grew up as a kid and there's like, you're not allowed to leave food on your plate, clean your plate.
Yeah.
So it's like now they get these big portions and they have
carry on. My doorbell's just gone. 2 secs.
They have to eat this whole portion, which is fine and all, but like maybe it's a petite girl and she only weighs like 120 pounds and she should be 100 pounds. And she's been given this big portion and she has this track in her mind that says, you have to eat all of this. And she's just going to eat all of it. Maybe like her husband cooks and her husband's a big guy and he eats a lot of food. But I know I do this. If I make food for someone, they get a portion that's my size. And I guarantee they don't need to eat as much as I do.
No.
It's like, they have that belief that I have to eat all this food, which is not their belief. It was conditioned into them by their parents when they were like 5 years old. And then they're in a situation that's not really in their control because they're being given food perhaps by somebody else. So it's like all of this is going on unconsciously. None of it's really their choice. None of it was conscious at the time of sitting down and eating this meal. They're not going, oh, let me overeat by 500 calories. It's happening without them knowing.
So what do you think someone could do about that if that they're in that situation and as a coach you feel that they're in that situation? Well, what could you do as a coach to try and help them identify that and solve that problem?
So there's levels to it. It's all about awareness. First of all, it's just awareness of what is happening. You don't always need to know where it came from or why. Sometimes people have like deeper issues that are more core and they're harder to change. But a lot of the time, it's just by shining a light on this is actually what's happening. They're like, oh, okay, clearly that's illogical. Let me change. Like people that are more, they have deeper levels of sabotage, that won't be enough. And you do have to unpack sometimes perhaps where it came from and stuff. And maybe that's getting beyond the scope of what most trainers would want to do or would feel qualified to do or whatever. But just bringing the awareness is quite easy. It's surface level. And most people will fix themselves because most people are well enough put together that they will be able to fix it themselves without having to go to 10 years of talk therapy.
What did I miss?
We just talked about other forms of kind of self-sabotage outside of, say, something as simple as the muffin in the shop, talking about how, for example, as a parent to a child might have always said, you need to clear your plate, and how that can then be transferred down the line into adulthood. So when, your husband or your wife decides to give you a full plate and you end up eating all of it, even though that's way too many calories what you should be eating, and that's basically what we've been talking about, and how it could be on the deeper rooted level.
Like there is depth to this. I think that, I think I was picking up what you were saying. Like, it could be like, well, what am I going to go back and fix all the shit that, like, maybe it was something deeper. Maybe they didn't feel loved by their parents, but maybe they just loved their grandma who used to come around and sneak them sweets when their parents weren't watching, and they link like a love, a feeling. Like I've had clients before when they start talking about like toast and jam. I had one client, and I was just sitting there and I was like, what the hell? So tell me about the toast and jam. And then, my God, did she get excited about it? It was like, no one could get that excited about just food. And then I was like, do you know where that came from? And then she just goes, yeah. But I remember like when I was growing up, like my gran and, you know, or she started talking about like when she felt like really like loved and comforted. And it's not like we needed to go back to those days and undo loads of stuff. But it was just like, she's like, oh my God, I've never thought about it like that. I was like, okay, well, what do you think we can do go forward? She goes, well, I still want to have that, but maybe I don't need to have it as much. Just the awareness of like going, I see. Like it can go deeper. Like you can go deeper. You can have, and again, it's just an awareness. It's like, well, I linked in the past food to receiving love. It's like you don't need to go and fix that back in the day, the reason they didn't get that. But the awareness is like, they can uncouple the behavior from the
reward, if you like.
The reward from so now they sit there. Let's play that out. Now they sit there. What tends to happen in these situations is you have a thought, and you're normally not necessarily conscious of what the thought is, but the thought comes from a feeling, or a feeling. Like a feeling is an unlabeled emotion. No. They might not label it that I feel stressed, or maybe they will. They just feel something. So they're sad. So then they're like, they might not sit there and go, I'm sad, so I'm going to go and eat some donuts, something sweet. They're like, I feel something. They probably won't even say I feel down. They just get a feeling. And then in their mind, it's like, right, again, it's often subconscious, like you talked about. Like monkey feels, monkey goes and does. Like they don't even uncouple that whole path. And then the next time after you've helped them see the awareness of that, they're like, that's that time that I would normally go and eat toast and jam because I'm feeling something. They're like, I don't. And then you, like you said, you give them strategies. Like, what could you do? Ask them. So it might be the next time it's like, well, what could you do when you feel like that? When you feel, you know, you said that sometimes when you feel lonely. What else I could pick the phone up and I could speak to my mum, or I could go out for a run, or I could do some sit-ups, or I could listen to ask them, they'll fucking tell you. And then you've uncoupled that behavior. You just brought some awareness to it. So our job when we're like, why are they not losing weight? Like we told them all the stuff to do. Why are they not stopping? Because often they don't know. And I'd say, what are your thoughts on how people view us as fit pros?
Me or Ash?
Both of you, yeah. Phil?
You can go first, Phil.
I think they're intimidated, for one. They think that we're some sort of like magical creature who just has it all figured out and it's all easy and we're somehow different. And to an extent, they're often right. Because fitness is typically a young person's industry, typically attracts people who are, their highest value is their hobbies are going to the gym. It's a total different reality for someone who's like working a busy, stressful job, doesn't like working out, doesn't like the gym, hated PE at school, maybe was a fat kid who got bullied, you know, they're stressed out, they've got 3 kids to look after. Like, so in a way, it's like we are this unicorn who has it really easy. But they certainly think we are, even if that's not quite the reality. They perceive it that way. They think, figured out, it's different for me. And it comes across most fit pros come across very preachy. Like, do this, do this, do this, don't do that, that's bad. And it's quite lacking in empathy and lacking in understanding of their reality.
Mm.
Yeah, I think I'd 100% agree. You see, like I mentioned, there are a lot of fit pros, and you'll see a lot of videos pop up online, and people with the balls like that behind us talking about you should do this, not do this, should do this, not do this, and that can be very scary for somebody who wants to come and work with you, especially if you've you kind of had that history of, especially like you've been bullied, for example, or maybe you've tried so many other things in the past about being told to this and told to that, and it's just not worked for you. And that can be very off-putting going forward. And kind of like I said there, most people that work in the fitness industry, they tend to work out inside gyms, they tend to be quite young. They probably always had an interest in sport or an interest in fitness, so they're going to look a certain way. And that, for a lot of people, can be extremely daunting. Like, I know people I've worked with, for example, that come to me. Like, I was never big, not people know this, but I had a business partner who would always have his top off all the time, would always get his abs out, his pecs out and stuff like that. And he loved his bodybuilding, and he still has got a great physique. I was never like that. I was climbing based, sport based, activity based, and I like a beer and I like curries. So we had two very different approaches, and we will literally attract completely different people because of that. And anybody that was scared or daunted by that will literally come to me. And it does make a big difference. It does make a big difference.
And I think, like, it makes a big difference as a coach. It's like, I see this. There's two things that I'm just sitting. And by the way, I get it. I do get it. It's like three things. Pictures of my food prep in Tupperware. Like, there's a lump of chicken and some broccoli and a lump of like rice. Yum, yum. Look at me and look at my food prep. Why don't you be like me? And then you can look like me. Lucky you. I've done that one before, by the way. And then the other one is like, there's a picture of my client on the floor in the gym, and I've just beasted him. Great, that's really what people want. And the other one is like, of course you've got time. Like, and then you might put something, Richard Branson has time, and it's like, there's such a lack of empathy of where people are. As a marketer, number one, like, look, if you're someone who's like, I'm going to work with type A guys, I'm going to fucking shout them, and this is like, I'm that hardcore, like, okay, do that shit. But if not, do the exact opposite. Like, show empathy. But I think when you get people as a client, I think this is something that as a coach you learn, and it should be drilled in. I think that Fit Pros, you get to a point where it's not that they're just meatheads. They just can't quite have the level of empathy for people that they should have, or that they would benefit them. My hope is, like, even just going through some of the stuff we're going through today. So I think what happens is, and anyone listening, it's like, you have these conversations with your clients, and I will say that it leaks out. So you're asking your clients to do something and they don't do it. And they come next week and you put them on the scales and they've not lost weight. And just out of the sort of side of your mouth, you're like just tiny little things of like, you don't mean to do it often, by the way. Sometimes you do, and you're like, you tell them off, and what the hell? Sometimes it just comes out in without you knowing. It's like, hopefully going through some of this stuff, you start to realize that it's not the client's fault, but don't get frustrated. Be more understanding and empathetic. And along the same lines, I would say is like, make it your business to understand this. Because what happens is, I used to get frustrated with clients, and now with the awareness that I kind of hopefully built, I got frustrated with them because of me, not them. I wanted them to get better results, and I felt like I was failing. I couldn't seem to get through to them. Why didn't they do? Why, especially when I was charging a lot of money, like a lot, and I was like, it was hard because I was like, I internalized it. I blame myself. I must be doing something wrong. Oh, I need to go and, like we said, I need to go and learn more about that. And actually, if we can get to that level of a coach where when we're coaching clients, we learn so much about ourselves as well while we're doing it. So we're like, that client needs to be more empathetic to themselves. Don't beat themselves up. And we do as well. And I think there's so many skills here when you delve into personal development and I don't know, coaching, but more personal development stuff around how can I help my clients see this stuff? I think you become not only a better coach, I think you become a better person as well. And certainly more understanding of your clients and where they are.
Empathy is such a huge thing, I think, in anything, in any part of life, but especially in coaching and in marketing and sales as well, to be fair. But I mean, how would you, if someone was to come to you, someone struggles with empathy, like I've got friends I know who struggle with empathy and have to be empathetic, how would you approach that? If I was to come to you saying, look, Tim, I understand what empathy is, that I really struggle to put myself in this person's shoes. I really struggle to understand where they're coming from. What would your advice be to me? How would you help me deal with that as a coach?
Awesome. I love this stuff. So first of all, you're probably at like, I was going to say second base, but that sounds like
you call it second base if you like.
Yeah, no, it's a loaded term. You're already kind of like 2 steps ahead of a lot of other people. That number one, you know that you lack empathy, and number two, you've asked for help.
Mm-hmm.
It's like fit pros don't ask for help.
Yeah.
That's a problem. Like, why would you not? Right? Why would you not ask for ego? Bravado, I can do it myself. I don't need, it's weak asking for help from other people. So you're in a good place already. I always look at it like, I think, so if you look at the definition of what charisma is strength times empathy. So there's a book called The Charisma Myth, which charisma is not exactly the same as coaching, obviously. There's a definition for it, but there's a lot of crossover, I think, with those two things. Being a good coach and being charismatic is a word that carries a lot of connotations. But if we can just accept that, say, strength times empathy. So if we use some examples in the book that she uses, and this was before my man Trump whipped Clinton. I'm joking. But this was before like Clinton and 4 years ago. This was like 8 years ago. So even at that point, people looked at Hillary Clinton as someone that had a lot of strength but had zero empathy. So it's like, can they move mountains? Will they move them for me? Big, swole, not saying your business partner, but big, swole dude in the gym. Can he move mountains? Of course he can. Look at him, like metaphorically, physically, of course he can. Will he move them for me? He doesn't understand me. It's like there's such a disconnect. So someone like Gandhi or, can he move mountains? Doesn't mean it's physical, obviously, but will he move it for me? Yes. So we can understand like what we tend to have as fit pros is we have a lot of strength, which we need, by the way. We need to be, as a coach, I call it that sometimes I've got my arm around my clients, but at other times I hold their feet to the fire. And I think a good example of it is someone like Alex Ferguson. If you're a Yank, I'm sure there's versions in America. He was basically like, he was known for what's called the hairdryer treatment. So it was like, he was known that he fucking told people some people he was like fucking giving them both barrels. But then if you read a lot of the players that came through underneath him, like the young players, they would say how he was like a dad to them, how he put his arm around people, how he made them feel like they were safe and that they could go and do what they want and express themselves out on a field. It's like people in the know would know that he had both of those. Brian Clough was the same. He said how it was, but the players that played under him loved him. So
it's funny for all the Americans watching, these are football managers, soccer managers he's talking about.
I try and give examples of American sports, but I don't know. Sorry. I know, and then I should learn some American. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was about to say something, I'll probably get it wrong. So what we need to understand is, I think a real central tenet of being a good coach is that we have to hold their feet to the fire. We have to do that. We have to be firm and strong because that's what they lack. They lack it internally. Boundaries. Don't eat the donut. Don't eat the donut. Eat the donuts. But they also lack empathy for themselves as well. They hate themselves and they treat themselves like shit. So what we tend to have is an over emphasis on strength. And that's often, like Phil said, even if we don't, that's how they view us. So there's a great video that I like around presenting and talking loudly. So they get this guy up on stage and they're like, right, talk. And they're talking more about presence. And they ask him to talk. And he's like this dude that looks like he lives in his mum's basement, and he's like, and he says, they make him say like, hello, how's it going or something. And you're like, oh my God, it's like he's a little mouse. And they're like, do it more. And he says a little bit louder, do it more, do it more, do it more, do it more. And about the 8th time, they're like, right, stop there. And this was the moment where he had shouted too loud. Like, stop there, go one back. And he went one back and they're like, that's how you should talk. So the metaphor there is, I think what you need to do is you need to practice empathy and almost do it too much, because you'll be like that guy when you say it. First of all, you'll think that when I say it the second time, oh my God, I'm doing it too much, because it's such a hard skill to learn, especially for men. So you just need to do too much to eventually get to the point where you're like, you know what, I think maybe I'm being too empathetic with people and I need to bring a little bit of that strength back. And I think when you can do that, you get the sweet spot between the two, because you can't, like me and Phil do a personal development program as well. And he's like, people end up like wet lettuces, like men do, if they're too empathetic. It's just like, no one actually wants to listen to them. But when you can be empathetic, but also you bring massive strength, that's attractive. It means that you're perceived as someone who's very understanding. So I think you can practice it with your clients, even with simple things like listening, listen to them, phrases like I really get that. I understand. I really get how that must be. Try and put yourself in their position. Like, try and understand think about things that you suck at. Like I said something the other day, like I was a bit brash. I was like, I could just judge most people in this group and say, what's the matter with you? Why don't you make more money? Why is your business not where it is? Come on, what's the matter with you? Are you dumb? Are you stupid? I do it. Why can't you? Is there something wrong with you? It's like, then you'd think I'm a dick. So think about things that you're not very good at, that you struggle at, and then put yourself in someone else's shoes. I mean, that's really what empathy is, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. You got any more to add, Phil?
I think to carry on from where you finished, that is a big point, that you might struggle to empathize with fitness. Because it's easy for me. I like going to the gym. I just do it. It's natural, whatever. But don't look at the specifics, but look at the underlying, like, what are they actually saying? Like, I struggle with this. Like, you do struggle elsewhere. So you can transfer empathy of knowing what it's like to struggle. Maybe you don't struggle with fitness, but you know what it's like to struggle with something. Maybe you're dyslexic and you can't do maths and you hated maths at school. Think about that. That's where your empathy will come from. Because whilst you might be to fitness, you're not a perfect human being. So again, it's just that taking a step back and seeing the forest for the trees sometimes to be able to bring that level of empathy, because you do have the same experience, just not in the same situation.
Mm.
The other thing that I'd say is that you can learn like fake empathy, like cognitive empathy, which is not actually feeling what they feel, but it's just knowing what they're going to feel. So if you've worked with hundreds of people, guess what? They probably all struggle with the same things. So at that point, it doesn't matter if you feel what they're feeling or not. You know they're going to feel that. So just build it into your program. Don't try and push them to go too fast when you know full well, based on the evidence of the previous 99 clients, that they're going to get stuck and struggle. Then start just thinking, okay, that's just how people are. Doesn't matter if I relate to that or not. That's the reality. So let me build my program based on that.
I think there's ego as well. Like Phil and I run a personal development program for men. And I think that it's a next level, and it's whether someone feels like that's something that I want to do, whether it feels like I even get it or that's not me. It's like I've always, I think without knowing, had some sort of empathy. I don't know. And I think that one of the first things that I would say as business owners is I think that we're always the limitations to our business. I think we're always the limitations to our success in life. I think we're the limitations to how good a coach we could be. So we are a reflection of our clients. So if we struggle with empathy for other people, it's probably also that we struggle with empathy for ourselves. So like Phil said, if you can't feel it with other people, it's not faking it. You can just go like a rational brain kind of, well, they would probably struggle at this point because I've seen that before, I can insert that. But starting to understand connection, you can start to feel how, like, listening is an empathetic, or it's a tool to become more empathetic. So when you actually listen to people, like, your business will change, your sales calls will change, your coaching will change, probably your relationship will change. It might be there's nothing wrong with your relationship, but I can tell you now, especially if you're a man, probably your partner doesn't think that you really listen. And to be honest, you probably don't either, because it's not a skill that we're naturally very good at. So I think a lot of, and this is something that people will be like, nah, that's not me. Cool. It's like actually working on ourselves, like almost like pulling ourselves apart. Lots of the stuff that I get, I think it's like a base almost. It's like, if you want to succeed in business, you'll keep going up and up and up. And if you're like, self-image is just how we perceive ourselves. So if your self-image is that I'm someone who doesn't deserve success, you're probably always going to pull yourself back to I'm someone who doesn't have success. So it's like the fat person. I'm someone who should be fat almost. I don't deserve to not be. And I think it's the same with us. So it's a choice. If I want to become the best coach I can, I actually do believe this. Like, you need to have coached yourself, or you need to have got a coach yourself. The first thing that I used to have business with this guy called Jason, and it was functional medicine, and we had taken a client on? No, we started the business, and he got introduced to this guy who was very, very wealthy, and I mean very, very wealthy, to a point where the guy was worth like 9 billion, like one of the most successful people in the world. And I don't mean that, by the way. And it's like, it was not going to be my client, but it was my friend, my business partner's client. And they had a separate agreement that he was going to go over to the States and work with him and get paid a ridiculous amount of money. And at that point, we were like, right, let's do this business together. And we knew that we were going to get some clients, or we felt that we could probably get some clients from this new circle of people that we were going to be involved with. And we did. And we got 2 clients. One paid £45,000 for the year, and the other one paid £50,000 for the year, which at the time was just like, what the fuck just happened there? Like, it's just functional medicine. It wasn't training or anything. And the first thing that I did is like, fuck. And I went and got my first ever coach. And I mean coach, life coach. So I was like, I recognized that I was out of my depth. Like, I was not the person that I needed to be able to step up to that level. So that's why I went and got a coach, because I knew that myself, and I was okay to be honest enough with myself. So I think personally, if we want to be really successful in business, and as a coach, by the way, we should have been coached. I would go and get a coach from outside of, I wouldn't rule out going and getting a coach from outside of the fitness industry and actually exploring, like Tony Robbins, like, I mean, I don't mean literally get him. Unless you've got is it $1 million?
Something like that's a lot of money.
So whatever the one-to-one is, yeah.
Yeah, one-to-one is. You can go to his shows and stuff. Yeah.
High five if you've got a good fitness business that allows you to do that. But like, you self-coaching, like, start to read some books around personal development. And one of the things that I know, Phil, you've talked about this before, it's like, don't just read it, do it. Do the exercises. Like, actually do it. Like, because it goes back to what we said about the empathy. You'll start to recognize your own patterns. There's a caveat here between what someone said earlier about fit pros having an ego. They have an ego. Often that is lots of people that covered up for something where actually it's probably a bit overblown. Not always, by the way, but actually, like, there's also a lot of self-doubt, which people might not recognize that. That's not me, but it is there. It will probably come out, by the way, from experience, when you make a good amount of money for the first time ever. You will start to question, am I out of my depth? Do I deserve this money?
Kind of like imposter syndrome type thing you seem to go through, don't you?
And you'll never get imposter syndrome when you're earning 20 grand a year.
No.
My mum's outside. The first time I ever made what my mum makes in a year, in a month, I was like, fuck. Like, I had some things that I needed to ask myself. I think a lot of people in business will end up limiting themselves. They'll get to a certain point and they'll stop, and they won't go any higher. So going and getting a coach allows you to unpick all this stuff about yourself, which then allows you to understand, you know what, maybe, like Phil said, maybe someone doesn't know that they've got bits in their life that are fucked up. But then when you get a coach, you realize that you do. You have limitations. You'll feel empathy now, because you know what it's like to feel, because you uncover it. I'm just thinking of some books. It's a bit deep.
Yeah. There's something quite nice about that. Though. I think once you've...
Have you read that?
Oh, Mirror Work. Yeah, I've read that, yeah.
You've done it.
It's a good book.
Done it.
Really good book. Yeah, I did. Yeah, quite a while back I did that one. Me and
Ash.
Me and Sarah are both in both me and Sarah are quite well in over the past. I don't know. Sarah's my wife, by the way. I'm just saying Sarah, like I was talking to Tim and Phil. But Sarah's my wife, and we've both been into like personal development and self-development for probably quite a lot for about 4 or 5 years, both really, really into it. And it has literally transformed our lives. And that book, we found that from, you ever heard of Mind Valley?
Yeah.
Mind Valley. And they had the book of coaching. I don't think you've read that book or not. It's built one of their programs. It's quite an interesting book. It's not like what you guys do, but it talks about, there's lots of like interviews in there and mini webinars and stuff. And they talk about mirror work and that, and recommended that as one of their books to go and read and to implement and stuff. And that, amongst some other books, literally completely changed everything about how we feel about ourselves, how we go about everyday lives, how we go about our business. It's and just the ability to kind of love yourself and everyone else makes a big, I don't know, it just made a big difference. Now
we'll get off.
Yeah, I'm going to shut up and not go too deep.
No, I like it. I'm seeing a new side of you, Ash. Come on.
Yeah,
I want you to actually.
But it's when I start talking to you about how life happens for you and not not to you all the time.
I'm not even going to grab the other one I'm reading at the moment. It's really quite deep. What other books are there, Phil? Like, if people want to go down that route.
What level of depth are we talking?
Not crazy.
Bible?
Yeah.
The subtle art of not giving a fuck. This is the one that's just been popped up in the comments.
I like the Byron Katie book. I think that did a lot for me. I think a level below that is something like Break the Habit of Being Yourself. Power of Now.
Yeah, Power Now is a good book, a simple book. There's other ones as well, like real simplified ones about understanding how your mind works. Power of Habit's quite a good one. Charles, whatever his name, that's quite a simple one.
I think the power of the chimp paradox.
Yeah, chimp paradox, really good. Steve Peters, isn't it? That one.
Yeah, and I think what it does is one of the reasons Phil and I started pivoting in what we're doing is because what we realized is that a lot of the stuff we've learned is outside of the fitness industry. So I gave you examples earlier about like organizational change. Like I learned that back in the day when I was doing my degree. I wrote my dissertation on something called efficient markets, which is basically the idea that our marketplaces in the financial sector or in our marketplace as a whole, are they rational? And most of our economic theory till about 25, 30 years ago, maybe 40 years ago, was based on like everyone in the market is a rational actor, all of this kind of stuff. And I was a trader as well, like a futures trader. I can tell you now, you don't act rationally. You act totally emotionally driven. Greed, fear, I know because I did it. So what they tended to then start moving into about 30 years ago was something called behavioral finance. And it's like, I think the definition of behavior is something like what actually your actions would suggest about what your motivations really are. So behavioral science is like, what does your actions suggest? So I'm really simplifying this, but what does a fat person's actions suggest? They might say they're motivated, but their actions are saying something different because they're eating donuts. So there's a disconnect there. So we can start saying, well, okay, I want to understand behavior. I want to understand why people do things that they don't want to do or do want to do, or they don't do it. And again, you can take these things from all different areas like life coaching, personal development, any sort of things on influence, on charisma. You can take it from organizational change. You can take it from all these different people. Tony Robbins, DeMartini is some stuff that we study and we bring it. The Joe Dispenza stuff. The problem with that is it's not for a fitness marketplace. It's not use this tool, but here's how to use it with your clients. That's just a disconnect that's not there, because Joe Dispenza is not talking to a personal trainer on how to get his clients results. We're like, how can we take what we've learned there and done ourselves and done with clients bit by bit, and actually how can we put that into a system where it's like, so DeMartini does something called a values assessment, like really simple thing to do. It's like, he's not doing that because he wants it to be useful for fitness professionals. All it does is basically finds out what's important to someone. It's like, if you, and the idea is you link what you, in fitness, the way we do it is like, no one wants to lose weight. They want to lose weight because of something else. And until they can link the something else to why they want to lose the weight, they're always going to, they're much more likely to find excuses. So if they can really realize that they're doing this because, and realize and say it and write it down and tell you and go into the gym with this in their head, I'm doing this because I'm having a kid in 6 months. And I don't want that person, that kid, that child to pick up on me being overweight. It's like, they might not even know this, by the way, but if you can connect, so value system work, you can connect why they're doing something or what they're doing to why they're doing it. And you can embed that into someone's head. You can get them to do things that the other personal trainers wouldn't. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients, how crass can I be, Ash?
Crass as you want.
Well,
yeah.
Don't say that. He was, he had 4 cars. Like,
Okay.
23. One was a Ferrari. One was a Ferrari. One was a Lamborghini. One was a Rolls Royce, who he didn't drive. His driver drove it. And one was just a Range Rover. And yeah. And he was a very good-looking dude. Had loads of money. Used to go out to tramp, spend 10 grand a night. It's like, when I started working with him, he threw $18,000 at working with me for 16 weeks. It's like, how am I going to get in his head? Because he's failed all these times before. He'd spent literally tens of thousands in a couple of the big kind of private studio-y type member clubs in London, like the best apparently. And I realized that I needed to get in his head. I needed to do something different, because it wasn't going to be that he's throwing the money was going to help. It's like, what is the thing that's really going to motivate him? And most 23-year-olds, it's like, I want to basically be popular with women, you know, generally speaking, but he already was. I was like, I had to get into his head. I had to figure out what it really was and what his pains were and how I could help him realize that he needed to do, because he kind of wanted to do it, but he didn't do it in the past. His behaviors would suggest that it wasn't that important to him. Yet clearly it was. And we just ended up in a situation where it's like, the thing that really came out eventually from talking to him, and I'm not going to go into the total crassness of this, is like, he would go out to a club. He was a confident guy, very charismatic, good looking, all of that. He would throw his money about, and he'd attract lots of girls, and they might come back to where he lives. He lived in like this really expensive place in flats in London, and they had a swimming pool and stuff. And he'd come back and he was just embarrassed. Like, he'd have a pool party and he'd sit there with his jacket on while everyone else was jumping in. And then he might end up in his bedroom, let's call it like that. And all of this bravado, all of this thing that he had, he was almost literally, metaphorically, but literally naked. He was just like, he had man boobs. He hated it. It wasn't congruent with everything else about himself. And so when we could start to understand that through questioning, and when we could start linking why doing press-ups might be good for his performance, let's just say, because at first he couldn't do more than 2. And I laughed at him on purpose, and I was a bit mean to him, but he realized, and I laughed at him and I said, God, and I made some comments about who might not be impressed that you can't hold your body weight up. Now that is crass, and I wouldn't say that to other people, but it's like that. I was like, do you think that if you could do 100 press-ups, that might be beneficial? That was it. I never had to tell him to do press-ups ever again. It's like, he'd come and he'd be like, I did 50 today. Is that good? What do you think? Yeah. It's like, and he lost 13 kilos, about 30 pounds. And he loved it, and he's kept it all off. So that idea is like, again, it's behaviorism. It's like, what did his actions say before? And now what do his actions say now? The flip there was just to understand what really is his values. So again, you can take this stuff from, I'm sure if you read Mirror Work, for instance, I'm sure you could find some stuff in there that would benefit your fitness clients. It's quite deep, but there's probably stuff in there. At least you now understand that probably a lot of your clients that are overweight hate themselves. Like they don't like themselves. They couldn't say some of the stuff in that book. Go on, I'm talking to that. Shut up.
So I've got comments coming out. That's all they keep popping up on me.
What are they saying?
My feed. That's all.
Read them out, Ash, because I can't see them.
Cool. So we've got people just saying it's hard to empathise. Jeff saying it sounds nice and simple being in their shoes, but he does really struggle with empathy. So this is really, really helping him. A lot of people are just saying good stuff.
You ask him why he struggles.
Yeah, ask him his lesson. We can ask him.
What's his name? Jeff, dude.
Jeff Seidman.
So Jeff, do you know if you had to have a guess at why you struggle with empathy, would you have any idea at all?
You have to give it 10 seconds. There's a little delay between us and that on that one, but I'll keep an eye out for him replying back on there. What else we got on here? People are saying hello, talking about books again on there. Yeah, that's about it. It's mainly just people saying that they agree, and especially about the empathy side. This is all stuff that they are struggling with, which is cool. Which is really, really good.
I think like one of the kind of key places I'd start to look at as well to give you the skills on that is there's a couple of books. One's called Crucial Confrontations. One's called Crucial Conversations. And I think like a lot of it can come down to, and I'm not saying this to Jeff or anyone. And when we talk about ego, people can automatically jump to like it's a negative. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. But I think that as trainers, if we can learn to understand when it's our ego talking. So your client doesn't do what you say. Why do you react a certain way? Because you feel something. So they come in, they've not done what they've said, and what do? It's like I had to work really hard on this doing what I do. Because when you start to be really honest with yourself, and you can be honest with yourself, which is quite hard because you start to understand why you're doing what you're doing. You're frustrated. They're the words that you'd use first. You're frustrated because your client doesn't do what you say. That's the first level. It's like, okay, I can now see I'm frustrated with my client, but really what that means is I'm frustrated with myself, which is quite a hard jump to make, but it's like, okay, I am bothered. So we can look at it like this. I'm bothered, and that's good. If I didn't care about whether my clients got results or not, like a lot of the people didn't when I was in fitness first, when I first started, they never felt that. They never felt the need to be empathetic. They just didn't care. It was nothing. I wanted my clients to get results. I was engaged in them getting a result. Why? I wanted to earn more money. And I like the fact that I'm good at things. So when I'm not earning good money or as much money as I want, and I don't feel like I'm good at what I'm doing, I then react in a certain way. And that reaction comes out probably not in the way that if I stood back, I would want it to come out. Like, think about if you're a man and you have an argument with your girlfriend, you probably afterwards would be like, you know what, I probably shouldn't have said it like that. Or maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. They're getting emotional and you say, stop being emotional. And then like 3 hours later, you're like, why did I say that? Don't ever say that. And so it's like we probably act in a way where we know that we would not want to act, because what's happening is our ego is being damaged because we're frustrated with them. No, we're frustrated with us, which really means that we don't feel like we're doing a good enough job. That's what it often leads to. So then our ego gets involved and we probably act in a way that we start, I don't think we're mean. How do you think we act, Phil? It's not being mean, is it?
Defensive.
I think defense is the perfect word for that.
We get defensive to them. And then so what do they do? So crucial conversations. Like this. It's like your ego is talking to their ego now. So nothing's ever going to get done and you're just going to bash heads. You're going to be like that couple that just argues and nothing's going to work. So
you often make it worse as well, because when you're both attacking each other, you say things in anger that you probably don't even mean. So then the argument goes away from the original point, which was probably something small and probably not that important, into like this cascade of other hurt feelings stuff. So it's like now you've got 5 arguments to unpack instead of 1. There's just, it's a downward spiral of making it worse.
And like, so a client turns up, and I've had it, and I'll have it as what I do as a mentor. It's like the client's turned up and they've not. I'll give you a better example, actually. When I had a fitness client, and they emailed me and they're like, Tim, I'm not happy. I spent £3,000 with you. It's week 3 and I haven't lost any weight. So how do I act at that point? So I can act from ego and defensiveness, and I can email that person back, and I can say, that's because you've not followed what I've told you to do, which was the truth. I think, Phil, you said this to me first. It's like, it's better to be effective than right. So my ego wants to email, because I'm right, by the way. Yeah, but you're drinking 2 glasses of wine a night. Stop fucking drinking the 2 glasses of wine a night and you'll lose weight. There you go. There's my £3,000. Well, that's not going to work, because they'll come back and they'll go, that's not true. Like, they might be right or wrong, but it's not helpful. So again, if I can step back from my ego wanting to answer that, and I can just go back and I can say, look, I totally get that. Empathy. Practice words. I totally get that. I get it. Even if you're kind of practicing at first, I was like, I totally get that. That's the first thing that we're going to discuss on the call tomorrow. We'll talk about it. And so then she arrives on the call, and of course her ego is still like, it's not quite as heightened as it was, but it's going to get back up there. Defensively, my ego wants to put the blame on her straight away. So then I have to arrive on the call and I say, look, and I frame the call and I'm like, look, we're going to talk about that. Okay. Let's just go over a couple of things first. Is that okay? Yes. So then we just start looking at like, okay, without judgment. So let's look at what's going on at the moment and what we can do together to improve this. Is that cool? Yes. So then I use something which is really simple. I use a 4-week training tracker, which, by the way, like you were saying, Ash, there's no reps at first. There's no, like, I don't even necessarily at first put the weights in. All I'm doing is I share it with them, and it's like week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. Aims of sessions that they were going to do, the amount of sessions that they've done. So I'm doing this behind the scenes. And in week 3, she turns up. So let's take a detour, and let's just say I said to her, but look, love, I won't say love, just look, that's my ego. That would make it work. Look, darling, sweetheart. So I'd say, look, you're saying that you've not lost weight, but this week you said you were going to do 4 sessions and you've only done 2. Yeah, she's going to have a reason for that. So she'll say, yeah, but this was busy this week. That's not the point. No, I'm not happy I spent all this money. Whereas if I step back and I'm calm and I don't get defensive and I can just let my ego, even if it does sit there and go, well, you know, maybe you're not good enough. And it's not, I know that's not the truth, right? So I just screen share this document. And all it does is it shows week 1, week 2, week 3, aims of the sessions that she was doing and how many she did do. And it looks like this. Week 1, 3, she did 2 sessions. Week 2, 3, she did 2 sessions. Week 3, it would have been the same. So I probably wouldn't have put it up unless she'd hit them. It's like, okay, what do you think we can do to just help with this? Like, Ash, what do you think she says then?
Sorry, I was muted then. I was trying to answer the question. I was muted at the same time because I was coughing away. Say that again, sorry.
I'm just like, what she does at this point is her ego can't get involved. Like, her ego has to take a side step, because she has to say to me, well, you know what? I said that I was going to do 3 sessions. And by the way, the big point of this, it's not once, it's 3 times now. She will, what do they say in NLP, Phil? Is it distort?
I can't remember.
There's 3 things that people do.
Distort, distract, and
yeah, and it's like that. So they're bright, and this is not her meaning to do this. It's like they'll distort the reality of the situation to suit what they want to have happened. So she's not lying. She's not being a dick. her brain is just distorting the importance of this. Whereas when I've got this in front of her, she goes, yeah, maybe I should do the extra session. Okay, cool. Again, my language is like, okay, cool. Like, what do you need from me to help you do that? How can we make sure that happens? Why do you think that's important? Like question. And then I'm like, okay, let's look at some food as well. Is that cool? Yes. So we get her food up. Like, okay, what's your thoughts? She sees the glasses of wine. Like, again, I can tell her, but even I'm sort of leading her, by the way. I'm like, how many calories are in a glass of wine? Do you know by any chance? And I'm playing dumb. She's like, no. So it's all right if we just Google it. I know, but I don't want to be judgmental. So I'm like, okay. Then we find out there's 300 calories. So we put it in. And we're like, okay, what do you think we can do this week to really get you on track? And then she's like, okay. And what you'll do is the more you coach people, the more you'll realize that the energy has changed in the way that they're talking. So she was angry at the beginning of the call. She wanted to not have a fight, but she wanted to blame me. By the way, there's a mirror going on. She wants to blame me because her ego is hurt, because she spent all this money and she's failing. She would prefer to blame me and my program and honestly say, maybe I'm not doing what I should be doing. And she distorts it, right? So then she said, well, okay, I think maybe what I could do is have one glass less wine. You know what? I'm going to do the 3 sessions. And okay, cool. So then I bring up, hey, look, let's just quickly go over the email. Is that cool? Yeah. At this situation, she almost feels embarrassed now. She almost feels embarrassed that she sent me the email going, I spent $3,000 with you. I'm not losing weight. I'm not happy. Because what we've done is kind of circumnavigated her ego to a point where she just can't at this point go, well, no, you're not doing something right, because she's taken ownership and responsibility for things that she's not doing. Like, that's the reality of the situation. She's drinking too much. Calories are too high and she's not working out enough. So we can really change things when we start to do that and start to understand, like, how do we bring, it goes back to what I said before, do too much empathy at first. Be too nice, too understanding to that person. Because what will happen, by the way, when you do this, it's almost like, what would be it's like you're in a way saving it up. Your level of empathy is like in the stores are getting higher and higher and higher. When you do need to bring force and tell people, if you do it where there's no empathy, you'll lose them. If you've built up so much empathy with them that they feel that you're on their side and that you understand them, when you tell them to do something, they'll fucking do it. So when you've had weeks and weeks of empathy, if you want to take this on a sales call, when you've had so much empathy and that person thinks that you understand them and you're on their side, and I just feel like you understand. When you tell them at the end, right, you need to fucking do this and you need to buy it, they'll just go, okay. Yep. And so I think that goes back to what we said about the strength and the empathy, these two things. Did we get an answer?
Yeah, we did. That's what I was looking at when I was muted it, so you couldn't hear me like going around. So a couple of comments who said, I can build a large following, but my patience and empathy wear thin very quickly. I constantly work on self-improvement, but have problems with empathy, although I know it 100% limits my success. I used to have it and made plenty of money when I had it, but since then I've lost my empathy. And it goes on to say, I still run a successful personal training business and want to take it online, but I think about empathy and I know not having it will sabotage me. That was his response, or Jeff's response.
Okay. There's a lot of levels we could go at this at.
There is.
I'm trying to think of the best thing to say. I don't know the situation for starters, so I'm only guessing. Mm-hmm. Phil, go on, you tell me first. I'm not going to just jump in. What are you thinking?
I don't know where to start.
Is there anywhere he could go that could help?
Yeah.
Just read everything that is said back and just say, is that true? And take a minute to sit and think if that actually is the truth. Any of it, all of it.
What does that mean, Phil? Go on.
He said a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are possibly assumptions, like saying that he used to have empathy, now he doesn't. Like, that doesn't add up to me. You don't just lose the capacity to have empathy unless you have a brain injury.
Yeah. I think that, and again, it's kind of probably not the answer that someone necessarily wants. I think that as men, what we tend to have is we tend to have a lot of the masculine, the more masculine energy type of stuff. So what people think that they need to do in these situations is that I need to work on beating myself, flogging myself, doing more, build, create, drive, do. When actually what I think they need to do is they need to probably start to be nicer to themselves and kinder to themselves, which might sound a bit like, well, why would I want to do that? Very like woo-woo, I just want to do more, hustle more, right? And so when, if you were in my personal development program, for instance, we would probably do the exact opposite to what you think we would do, which actually we would probably, to help you understand, like, it sounds to me like, and again, I don't know, by the way, I'm just guessing. Sounds to me like you're probably harsh on yourself. I don't think that, like Phil said, it's like maybe, it sounds to me like someone's impatient, which by the way is not a bad thing to want to go at pace. But I think that someone, if they started just being kinder to themselves, so for instance, you do something and it doesn't work, you beat yourself up. I could go deeper, by the way, and I could ask, where did this kind of behavior first show up? And I suspect it's probably something that's ingrained. I'll give you an example of one of my clients. He was a very, and I am going deep here, by the way. So he was a very high level sportsman to a point where he thought he was going to be a professional something or other. I'm not going to give you any more details because he might be on it, but it's like he only ever got congratulated when he was younger, when he got a result. So if you read something like Mindset by Carol Dweck, you'll understand, like, do we motivate people by outcome or effort? So a lot of like education now is starting to say, let's congratulate people on effort, not just outcome. So if we've been someone that's been always congratulated for outcome, when we don't get outcome, we get angry at ourselves and we start beating ourselves up. Sounds to me like I've got a successful program in person. So my wonder would be, well, you're successful there. It should be that you can be successful online as well. But there seems to be some limiting beliefs there about like something's holding me back. So it's maybe like you'll go and start doing it and you'll suck because you should, because it's something that's new. And when it doesn't work, first of all, you get annoyed, which is often annoyance at ourselves. So we probably stop, or we don't do it as much as we could, or we're internally like judging ourselves or being mean. So when I say be mean, we just beat ourselves up a lot. So I would look at like, where do I recognize that came from? And how can I might get someone to do something like, and this sounds a bit strange, I get that. I'd be like, I'd write down every night 3 things that I've done that day that I'm happy for. See, you could frame it like 3 things that I've done that day that I'm proud of myself for. 3 things that I've done which are, and I might make rules around like, these have to be process-based, not outcome-based. They have to be process-based. And the difference is like, I went to the gym 3 times today, not I lost 2 pounds this week. So a lot of the thing I do with in my 12-week blueprint with my coaching stuff is all the goals at the beginning are process-based, never outcome-based, because they'll beat fat people, the clients that come to us. They've got so much history and evidence that they're failures. You almost don't want to give them a chance to be a failure in week 1. I actually don't care what they do. I literally don't care what the aims are that week, as long as I can get them the first bit of evidence that they feel good. I've achieved something this week. So if that's 2 liters of water, walk around the park, that's all I care about. I've got 11 more weeks. I'm certainly not going to go, right, your aim this week is to lose 3 pounds, because they might not do it. And then what? Shit, who was I to think that you could do this? Then our inner voice, our thing in our brain goes, told you so, told you so, told you so. So I think that you could start by being like, that's empathy. writing down 3 things that I've done each day that I'm proud of myself for doing. Practice that. Do it more. And by the way, you will actually see a difference with this stuff very quickly. You will be surprised the difference it makes. Am I getting any feedback, Ash, or have I lost everyone? You got any
You're
thoughts?
on mute, Ash.
I was still muted again, wasn't I? Yeah, I said people are commenting, they're coming back, and Jeff just said he totally appreciates all your input and stuff that you're saying as well, which is cool. Just quickly on that, I know it might sound really weird. It's not the best book in the world, but it really helps with what you was talking about there. It's called, what's it called? Like Greatness Journal? Is it the Greatness Journal? I think it was called. And it's worth getting because it literally helps talk about like values and stuff, but it has that exact exercise there about writing down 3 things that you're kind of grateful for, things that you're proud of yourself for. And you do that every day. It helps remind you to do that every single day. And it's amazing how quick that can help change just the way you feel about yourself. It's worth checking out.
I mean, it goes back to what I said about, like, I think that we're the limitations to our business. I think we're the limitations to how good a coach we could be. Like every single person, like in the internship program that we do, I coach people myself. Like I'll do it with them because I want them to learn how to coach by being coached. I want them to see what I'll do for them. And a lot of the time they're like, I wasn't quite expecting what we're doing here. I thought you were just going to tell me like how to make the program work. And I'm like, I'm going to, but I also want to, it's like building a foundation in some way. If we believe that we're the limitations to the business and our limitations for whatever's going on is here, like money-wise, it's just such an easy way of looking at it. People make money. Why do lottery winners always lose it? Why do they always give it away? Because their self-image is that I'm someone who's poor. Poor people are poor because they have a self-image of being poor. They're not good with money. That's why they're poor.
Yeah, so, like your spending habits don't change, do they? Whether you got money or haven't got money, they just get bigger.
So exactly. So you get to a point where it's like, well, I don't believe that I'm worthy of more than this. You'll only ever figure that out when you get there, by the way. You won't figure it out before because you don't think that's the problem. You think it's everything else. So we just bring it back to like success. It's like, well, my success is like, I don't believe I'm worthy of being like a 6-figure business owner. That's a jump for a lot of people, but they might not feel necessarily, and again, this is sort of often subconscious, by the way, but I just don't feel like maybe something happens. Maybe you go online and you put yourself above what everyone else is doing, and another personal trainer says something about your stuff. And like, why would anyone care what someone else says about their stuff? Because they in some way believe it to be true. You don't react to things if you don't in some way believe it to be true. So another trainer goes, you have no idea what you're talking about. I don't give a fuck what you think. Now, and that's a learning though, and a practice, because it's like, well, if you believed that they were true, i.e. you have your own self-doubts about yourself, you're going to react to that, which means that you will go, your brain sometimes will go, told you so, told you so. Who did you think you were to be successful? Like one of the big things about online is it's naked. Like it really is naked compared to working in a gym. You can be a big, big fish in a little pond and you can be totally cool and nothing's ever going to happen to you. And no one's ever going to get on Facebook and say anything about your stuff. You also can always fall back on, well, at least they're, at least like they're getting fitter and we hang out and all that stuff. Like online is especially high ticket, isn't a results-based business. So it's naked. It shows the flaws that you might have, or maybe not the right way of looking at it, but it shows the flaws of whether the client does get results. Whether the client gets results or not, and especially when you're charging more as well. So I think there are a lot of things that stop people going online, or they get there and they end up falling all the way back, especially if you charge a lot. Like I could have let that client affect me. And it's not that it didn't, and it's not that there weren't those voices in my head, and it's not that I didn't have self-doubt. I've just practiced enough to just work on, is that, like Phil said, is that the truth? Is it the truth that she spent $3,000 and she should demand results while still drinking wine and not training properly? Is that true? No, of course it's not. Like the truth is but she's not going to see that. So go and do that. Like Phil said, go and do some of that work. Here's the deal. I would say buy that book and just read it. You don't have to do it at first. Just read it. Make a commitment. I'm just going to read it.
Cool. So I'm just conscious on time because we're going for age. I think that's how we've been talking for. That's cool. Then we've got plenty of time still. I can go on for another hour if you really want. But we've got some people mentioning some bits on here. Where's it gone? Dave Anderson to say he has a BH in psychology and MD in pastoral care. And when he started lifting, he actually lost empathy, and he said he became like self-absorbed as a PT. And he has actually had to reach back and redevelop empathy based on a lot of stuff that you guys have talked about. And now he's kind of become the people psychologist and physical therapist and PTO at the same time, and is kind of starting to discover why he lost those why he abandoned those skills in the first place, and starting to bring them back in.
I'm interested why. Does he know why?
I don't know, David. If you're still there, do you know why? We'll ask him. What else we got on the side here as well? Tim's just saying, like, you're so right. Empathy is massive and outstanding live so far, lads. There we go, which is always good. Just quickly, whilst we're talking about this, obviously you guys have talked about the stuff that you do in terms of behavioural change and stuff like that. Do you want to talk a little bit about what exactly it is you guys do and where people can find out more about it?
Cool, Phil. That's all.
No, you take that.
I'm just going to sit there.
You're better at pitching than me.
This is the elevator.
Your show, Timmy. Let you have your show.
What do we do?
Well, we've got the link, which is in the above all the comments, so they can have a look at it.
I'm going to answer. I'm just looking at the best angle to do it. So I guess the thing that we would look at is where do you know that it's the time for you to start to understand behaviors? I love that definition. Your clients can say they're motivated, they can be motivated, but their behaviors are saying something different. So if you've got a client that's not losing weight, minus the 0.5 or 1% that aren't, because hormones and all shit like that, but most people would, and look, I'm going to say it, it's a calories in, calories out thing. Like, they'll lose weight if they're in a calorie deficit, but their actions are not leading them to do that. So you've got two choices at that point. You can go, it's not, and I've seen this debate. This client is not doing what I said, what should I do? You've got two options. They're not doing what I say, it's their fault, tough. Get rid of them. Awesome. Totally reasonable thing to do if that's what you want. Or you go down the other road where you say, I want to know why they're not, and I want to be the trainer or coach that can help those people, and I then want to get paid for being that person. And they're two distinct, like on that, what's it called? Sliding Doors film. I know that you love it, Ash. And you lie and say it's Sarah watches it, but I know you love Gwyneth Paltrow. And it's like you've got...
That's old school, that is.
Yeah, but you've got the choice, like which route do you want to go down? Go down the route where, and Lion McDonald had said something in a post the other day, someone posted on that, and I think it was like, if you think that you're going to create impact, make lots of money, be really successful, feel great about what you're doing based on clients that already want to do it, come into your gym or your studio or whatever, and just do everything you say, the right clients, it's like you're going to go down that route where you're going to get paid relative to that, i.e. you're just giving them the information and they just do it. It's like the 5% of clients that walk through the door, if that. Or you decide, you know what, I want to be fucking well paid. I want to create transformation. I want to be the person in my area that becomes the go-to person. This is what I used to love. I used to want to hear this. Someone would say to me at the end of my 12-week program, I can't believe this has been so hard. And they'll go, and as in, I can't believe that in the past this was so hard. They're like, oh, it's not that it was easy in your program. It's just like, it's so simple. And they're almost confused why they struggled for the last 15 years. They're like, it's the best thing I ever did. And they mean it. And you've done a 12-week transformation. Maybe they buy your 6-month program, your mastery program. Maybe they don't. Maybe they've got what they need. And you become known as that person, which is, by the way, when you can start charging a fuck of a lot of money, because you get the results. Think about their friends. Like, you need to go and speak to this dude. It's unreal. I've been trying this for 15 years. How much money have people wasted doing it the wrong way? I used to get a lot of the times where people would they'd literally say things like this to me. It's like, if I can't do it with you, if I can't, doesn't work with you, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I've tried everyone else. And that's like, when you start charging more, that's the kind of thing that people say to you. And so bringing it back to why we decided to do this is, like, there's a lot of marketers out there. There's a lot of people that are good at sales and all that stuff. And we massively appreciate it, because you need to bring clients into this program. But it's like, there's not many people like that can actually sit there and go, well, look, why are 9 out of 10 of your clients not getting a result? Because online, high ticket, that doesn't wash. It does not wash. There's like the great thing about online is you fucking freedom. You can do all that. Sign up with a marketer. They'll tell you how to get all these clients. And then what? You get refunds, chargebacks, people leave like the first month. Then you get that fucking email from PayPal saying your subscription's been cancelled. And you just think you're like in this Groundhog Day of, I need to go get more clients. I need to go. Everyone's selling lead generation. Like, just deliver, do a great job. They'll spend more money with you. It's much easier. Like, get your clients to stay with you, not disappear after a month. Like, that's what people aren't probably sharing. And what is being shared, I actually don't think is going to the depth that, I think a lot of people that do this with us, they're actually also genuinely curious. They want to be good. They want to understand. They want to be able to, like, what I like is that, so for instance, matey boy earlier that was saying some stuff, Jeff, I think if I was on a call with him, I'd probably be able to tell him why some of that's going on. And I just love being in a conversation with someone where I can help them have that breakthrough where they like, you've told them something about themselves or helped them see something about themselves that they've never understood before. It's like that changes someone forever. It's like, oh my God, even the basic stuff we've talked about today, it's like, I never looked at it like that. And that's it. They've changed and they're never going to go back to where they were. So I think there's a lot of people that want to do this because it's curiosity. A curiosity of, I want to be good. Another thing that I think is that there's people that are like, what am I going to do in 10 years? What am I going to do as a 45-year-old? What am I going to do when I've got kids and a mortgage? Like, it's almost like, what is the career that I'm going to have? And I'm not saying being a personal trainer is not a career, it is. But being a very, very highly renowned, both in person, by the way, and online coach that gets paid a lot of money for delivering amazing results and understanding all this stuff. I just think, Phil, do you remember we talked about this? It's like, I just got bored. I just got bored with personal training. Like, I can't.
Yeah. It's not challenging anymore. You're going through the motions and I think when you're telling people the same information and half of them are not doing it, it's like you're just banging your head against the wall. And
it's exhausting.
You've tried going to find more information and give them more information. That doesn't work. You realize that something else. And I think the essence of a transformation isn't getting results with people who do what you say. It's getting results with people who don't do what you say. That's the essence of a transformation. Because you've actually transformed them. If they were going to come and do everything you say anyway, they could just bought a book and got results, then you've not really given them a transformation. Physically, they might have transformed, but they haven't transformed mentally or transformed their life.
It's not going to stick.
When you actually get results with someone who wouldn't otherwise get results, and you'll understand this when you do it, when you've done coaching, you will recognize that back when I was doing personal training, I wouldn't have got results with that person. When you really recognize that, you're like, okay, that was a real transformation. I actually changed that person's life. I made a big impact in their life.
And not just they say being kind, you've changed my life, because you get them to do a testimonial. Like, you can recognize that you have. I'll give you an example. I had a client that paid me maybe certainly over $100,000 over the space of like 3 years, which sounds and I mean one client, sounds absolutely ridiculous. And I was working with him when I was kind of starting to get into coaching. I know what you're laughing at, Phil, already. Like,
well, I'm laughing at
compliments or sport. Anyway, and it was when I was just getting into coaching, but probably just a bit too late to have an effect on him. And towards the end, I felt like it's hard to change a relationship sometimes. So I just knew at the end of that, if I had actually understood coaching, I would have got him the results that he was okay, by the way. He was fine. He earned so much money. He just wanted to come and do sports for half an hour. That's what he called it. However many times I told him it was personal training for like 3 times a week. And he was fine with that. But it's like, actually, I could have, now with not what I know, or even like towards the end of when I was working with him, I would have got him the results that he wanted, and it would have been great for business. And I would have felt good. I would have felt really awesome about doing it. And I look back and there's so many clients in hindsight that I'm like, no wonder I didn't get the results. And I was also blinded to it. So think about it. Yes, I've got a great portfolio of case studies. It's like, it was good at the beginning. It was okay. But I always put my brain into like the confirmation bias of, yeah, but those ones that did really well. One of my clients lost 6 stress sizes. I thought I was the bollocks. But what about the clients that were around at the same time that didn't do anything, didn't lose any weight? Because they cancelled because they couldn't afford it. That's not true. They cancelled because they weren't getting the result. That's why they cancelled. If they were getting a result, they would still be buying it. And it was like, I look back now and I'm like, there's so many people that I think I could have helped more if I had just understood a bit more. Now, I'm not beating myself up because you have to learn step by step. But we're hopeful that with this internship that we can take like 5 or 6 years worth of a lot of the learning we've done and actually build it into something that's like, because I don't think there's many people doing it like that. I think there's a couple of awesome people like Dax Moy. I think he's really awesome. He's someone I've always looked up to. You know, he understands coaching. There's other people that are doing it, but for us, it's like, there's no one's taking them from the start to the finish of like, well, here's how to build a program based on behavior change. Here's what you do. Here's how to go and get clients for that program. Obviously, selling is part of it, but here's actually how to deliver it. So what we're doing is like, we'll help people build the program, get the clients. So our aim, because we want to actually help people run their own clients through what we call a beta version, which is like, we're going to actually do it with you. So imagine like, I think we talked before this, Phil, imagine like you went and you wanted to train, you went to United and you wanted to train their first team. What they would probably do at first is put you with, say, the under 21s. And they'd say, right, perfect your skills there, get good at what you do, have the kind of case studies. It would be kind of show that you're great at that. And then down the line, we're going to get you in the first team. Those first team are like the high paying clients, right? They're the guys that are going to spend $3,000 with you or $2,000 with you, the high flyers and all that. And what people tend to do is they think they can just jump straight to, let me go and train the high flyers. It's like, let me go and train the first team. Let me go and fucking train. I haven't got any decent players now, but when they did have decent players, like, let me go and train Ronaldo when he was at United. It's like, it's not going to happen. I'm just laughing at Ash. It's not going to happen, right? Or it's not that it's not going to happen, but you're probably not in the best place to do it. And what happens if you go, by the way, and you get Rooney or Ronaldo a few years ago and you've got no idea what to do. You break them. Great. Or they're not happy with you. Well, great. You probably don't feel great. You end up just thinking this doesn't work. So the whole idea is like 12 weeks. We'll actually do it with you, like week by week. This is what you do in week 1. This is what you do in week 2. This is what you do in week 3. We'll teach you like a beta version of your program. So we'll create it with you. These guys invest a little bit less. So, you know, not the big money, but you get 3 things: cash, confidence, and clients. And you run people through, you've got case studies. It's like, even now, it's like the guys are coming to say, look, my client's doing this, or they're not doing this. What do I do? Okay, what's going on? Talk to me. Tell me about, okay, have you asked this? No. Go and ask that. Have you used this tool? No. Go and use that. See what happens. And obviously, we're trying to also get in front of any of that happening as well. So that's the program. On a bigger picture, I need this J-Cash. Come on, share it with me.
It's just, Tim's just said, come on Spurs tonight. Haha. That's all it was.
Yeah, too right.
Too right.
All English final.
Yeah, not bad, is it?
Last night. Like, I think, like, away from like what we're actually doing with the internship, like we do have a free Facebook group, and we just want to help fit pros see that there's a new world. Like that's what it felt like to me when I was like, it's like a new world almost. It's like, fuck. It's like this curiosity of like, oh my God, I got so bored of this. And there's this whole new world of stuff that I can go and learn, but implement with my clients. And you start doing it. You start just doing simple things like asking your clients questions, and they change in front of your face. You're like, well, that was easy. And then you start doing some more of the in-depth stuff, and you start to actually understand, like, how do I understand my clients' limiting beliefs? How do I change their self-image? How do I change them from believing that they're just failures in this stuff to actually, no, I can do this? And so a lot of work we're doing in the free group is just content and thoughts and ideas and trainings and stuff around almost the introduction to behavior change within the fitness industry, and specifically for the fitness industry. Go on, what are you laughing at?
Well, Tim just keeps talking to Les, so it's not even a Spurs fan either. That's all it was. It was just funny. He keeps talking about Spurs on the group.
Come on, concentrate, man.
Concentrating. It's important stuff we're talking about, Tim.
Tim who?
Tim Lefleur.
Oh, I thought it was Tim Sayers. Like, fucking do some work, man.
Oh no, he's finished now. I'll take over the group after 5 o'clock.
Yeah, he's got his feet up with his
cup of tea.
He's just like bringing his cup of tea and Tim
Yeah.
Sayers. Any other thoughts, Phil? Why do you want to do this? Why did we start this? Why did you do it?
For me, it's the next. You touched on it. Like, do you want to be 45 or do you want to be 55 and being a personal trainer in the gym and walking around the gym floor trying to tout for clients? Like, a lot of people don't. A lot of people see fitness as like a young person's thing, maybe a transitory career before they get a quote unquote real job when their mother-in-law finally gets in their head that this is not a real career. Like, this is the next step. It allows, like you said, that whole new world of, there's suddenly a next level as a progression that allows you to move beyond the commodity of being the personal trainer wearing fitness first personal trainer on your back, the same as 3,000 other people. Start to build more of a brand for yourself, a business. Start making an impact in people's lives in much bigger ways. That you can build a bigger business. You can make more money by being a coach because you're making more impact, because you change people's lives in a more fundamental way. And it allows so much more career growth and, more. There's just somewhere, there's a next level for you to go to. There's somewhere for you to aspire to, and this whole new arena of things to go and learn and to try and to become better. And it opens up so many doors. Like, it's because I think we've all been there. Like, there's a reason why none of us now work in the gym. Like, I wanted to travel. You wanted to just live at home, Ash. I don't know, but I guess you wanted to work on the computer instead of at the gym, right?
Yeah, I just got bored working with the same people over and over again. Yeah. That's all it was.
The sad thing is, it's typically the best trainers who get bored because it's not intellectually stimulating anymore. We're the people who care. We're the people who really want to get results for our clients, who want to grow ourselves and better ourselves more and to do more and make more impact and serve the world. We're exactly the people who get bored and without that clear next step often leave the industry and go do something else. Mm-hmm. Like, the people who don't care as much, who don't take their clients seriously, who don't really give a shit if they get results or not, they're the people who just turn up and it's a bit of a joke and it's whatever, it's easy money. It's like, I feel like we're really serving the cream of the industry, the people who really give a shit and who have the greatest potential to make the most impact. Like, that's who we're serving. That's who's going to serve the world, the clientele in the biggest way.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. I think I to be honest, I loved personal training. I loved it for when I learned it, but then I got to a point where I was like, I hated it. I hated it. I just couldn't stand it. I was like, oh. Look down at my diary and it'd be like, oh my God, I've got him in tomorrow. I'd be like, oh fuck, it was Monday and he was in on Tuesday and then Thursday. I'd be like, so on Monday I'd be dreading that client that's Tuesday. Then Tuesday I'd be dreading Tuesday. Then Wednesday I'd be like, oh, I've got him again. And then Thursday I'd have him. And then Friday I'd be like, yay. And then I'd be like, oh fuck, by Monday. Just like, and again, it was like, I was frustrated. And I think there's just so much more that you can do. Like I just love doing it. I'm so fucking interested in behavior change, in coaching, in what it can do. Like me and Phil have kind of, I wouldn't say step sideways with a lot of what we've learned. So we are doing more personal development based stuff with other people, but even within that program that we do, it's like one of the main pillars is fitness, because it's so fundamental to people's lives. So if you're a personal trainer and you can really change someone's beliefs and get through to them like other people haven't, not only do you change their fitness and how they look, you change all these other things about them as well. Like they have better lives. Like our program is like, we teach like, we coach like if it's relationships, if it's happiness, if it's success at work and business and fitness. They're the kind of 4 pillars. In a way, when you do a body transformation with clients, you're actually doing all of them as well. Like you're not directly going, right, I'm going to teach you how to have a better relationship, but you make someone feel more confident about themselves and happier with themselves. That will help their relationship. Like you make them have more energy, like especially when you're doing a transformation style. You make them more successful at work. They make more money. They feel happier about who they are. Like they genuinely do. They get to the end of the program, it's like, wow. When they say things like, this has really changed my life, it's not just some contrite statement that someone says on a video because they think that they should. It's actually genuine. I think that's the power of coaching, and specifically that's the power of coaching like transformation style within the fitness industry. Any other questions?
You're teaching them how to change and how to be successful, which can be applied to anything.
Yeah.
You raise their self-awareness and you show them like how to identify and change their habits, how to overcome their limiting beliefs, and they can easily apply that to their relationship, to their business, to their career, whatever. It's not too much of a leap, and especially when you're in that place where you understand that they do most of the talking and they know most of the answers. You don't need to tell them all of this is how to do the diet. So suddenly it's like you can coach them or they can coach themselves through anything else as well. It's the same process. It's just, I have a situation, how do I change it? So if you zoom out away from the specifics of fitness and you take it to a meta level of how do I create change in this person? Because it's the same thing.
Cool. Yeah, I've got a few bits coming in. People just agreeing with you. Phil, for example, earlier on said he just feels so bored. You kind of hit the nail on the head about being bored there. Tim again saying like exactly right. Totally agree with what you're saying. Just saying yes, so interesting stuff. Well, the are keen is where can they sign up or where can they get involved? Because you talked about what you offer, but we haven't actually told them how they can sign up yet. Or they obviously got the group. We've got the Facebook group. We've linked that in there. I'll put that in the comments as well.
We've done a couple of things actually. What we're doing next week is
that's just the link in below that I sent you, Ash, is the link for the thing we're doing next week.
Okay, cool. Okay,
so
cool.
We can also put the link to our group as well, the Institute of Fitness Behavior Change. As far as the group we're doing next week, what we wanted to do is we could give some people some resources to go and do, like go and do this with a book. What we actually wanted to do is we wanted to help people go and start some of this, because it's like, where do I even start with everything you're saying? Like everyone's saying it's awesome. Like I'd be watching this and be like, oh, fucking hell, I need to know that stuff. But then I'd be like, now when I go back to the gym on Monday, what do I actually do? Do I just walk up to my client and start saying, did you hate yourself as a child? Were you fiddled with by the priests and the only way you could be happy was eating donuts? And
yes, that's exactly what you should do.
Or should you be like, did your grandma give you jam and toast or whatever, and that's why you're fat? And but no, actually what we need to do is, how do we going to start this? How do we start moving from being a trainer to being a coach? Like what could we actually do? And part of that is practice. So the way that I'd look at it is, when I learned to be a personal trainer, they taught me stuff at Premier. Then they said, go away and do this thing with someone that you know. So I went and did it. And then they're like, right, now you've practiced, bring someone in that you know to do some stuff with you in the gym. So I did that. And then bit by bit, I'm learning to be confident doing this. So what we're going to do next week is we're actually going to show some people in that group, like, go and do this with your clients, starting slow, go and do this one thing. and then come back. And we're going to do it with people in the group. So if they're a bit unsure and they're like, what do I do now? What would I do? I'm a bit worried about how, just basically we're going to show them how to practice what we're talking about. And like, look, it's not going to be like, it's like the analogy, we're not going to get you getting someone into Premier and teaching them Olympic lifting, but we're going to get you like the basics. Like we might get, the analogy would be like, we're going to get you showing them someone how to squat. It's like, we can show you the building blocks to some of the stuff that you can go and do yourself eventually if you realize that this is what I want to be involved in. This, I'm fascinated by this. Even with, for instance, you just starting a conversation with your client and them just having a little bit of a change in perspective. And you're like, fuck, they've actually gone and done what I said this week. That worked. When I just stopped telling them what to do and I just asked them, what do you want to do this week? What are some goals? And it's like, shit, that seemed to work. And that's the spark, I think, like that we got, was like, wow. I think the thing that we did is there wasn't really people doing this. We kind of just cobbled it together. So next week, we want to give you like a step-by-step, go and do this week, go out to your clients and practice. It's like one of the, and we're not saying that this is going to be something that people are going to do. One of the big places that people start with online, but just coaching, because coaching innately should be done away from your sessions. It can be practiced within the sessions, but it's like a hybrid thing. So what we're going to leave people with is like, look, could you see what you've just done is almost like the start, the building block of a hybrid, because you've had a coaching conversation with your clients. They might not know it, but we're going to show you how to say to your clients, hey, I'm learning this new stuff. Would you mind if we did this? We're going to give you some resources to do with your clients, show you how to do it, show you how to have the conversation, how to frame it. And then maybe at the end, you're like, God, I can do this. And then maybe I've seen a little bit of a change with my client. Maybe I haven't, but maybe I have. Maybe down the line, you're like, I think I could figure out how this could look like a hybrid. Maybe you charge for it as well. Maybe you don't, maybe you do. But you deliver more to your clients and more value. So we're going to do that in a Facebook group next week. I think we're going to limit, can't remember, what did we say? 30, 40?
30 people.
Yeah, because we want to actually give some interaction ourselves on it. So there is a link if you want to get involved.
Cool. I'll put it in the comments as well, so it's just like they can see it at the bottom of the comments if you don't catch it in there.
There's a few questions that you'll have to answer. You'll have to answer. I think that we'll probably have more people in there than we've got capacity for. And we do want people in there that actually want to do this. Like, I know how many groups we're all in. Like, you sign up because you get excited and then you don't do anything. It's not going to happen. We're going to make you do something in the first day or two. If you don't do it, then we're going to kick you out because it's a waste of your time and it's a waste of our time. So we'll get you in there. There's a couple of questions. I don't think that there's anything complicated. And then we're just going to insist that you do one task. And look, I know how busy everyone is, by the way. So if it's not right time and you think it wasn't, that's cool. It's no problem. But it'd just be like, maybe swing around another time. But if you want to actually do this with us, let's do it properly. No charges at all, by the way.
Cool. That's awesome. Thank you very much. I think everyone will be happy. Hopefully those people sign to that. I'm sure they will do.
Yeah.
I don't want to rush anything through, but I've obviously got a webinar in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I want to eat before then, which is all good. Awesome. Yeah, Jeff just popped up again saying, got to run. Seriously, is going to look into it and getting involved with you guys, which is really cool. So he says thank you for that as well.
Just tell him to give me a shout as well, by the way. Jeff,
cool.
Give me a PM and
He talks, as you can tell, chats. Likes to chat out there, everybody.
Resources and things. All right.
Yeah. Cool, awesome. Well, cheers, gents. Thank you very much. Anything else you want to chat about before we go?
We're going to leave you and go get some food. You can
awesome. I'll flag otherwise. Cool. Thanks so much, gents. Anyway, cheers, Phil. Cheers, Tim. And thanks everyone that stuck around as well. I know it's been a long one. It'll obviously be available inside the videos, inside the group, and I'll add it onto the blog as well. And Tim, Phil, I'll send it over to you once I've got it downloaded and everything, so you can use it whenever you want.
Nice one, man. All right.
Cool. Cheers, guys. See you later. Bye-bye.
Cheers.